see.
Emily, you start that
Are we
report.
recording it?
Yep.
Thank you. And who is our first person
can lay it
that
down.
signed up?
You can lay it down.
Judy Root.
Oh, Judy 3. Okay, Judy?
Hi. I just wanted to thank the board for all their hard work and looking at the options on where to go in the future for the Willington school system. I am completely in support of moving forward with something other than putting a lot of money into Hall School, since we do not own that facility. I think we need to come up with another solution. I think the solution is to find a new location and to have a new single school instead of trying to maintain two separate schools with two separate staffs. I know it's a big endeavor, but I just don't think we can sustain the two schools, and especially with the amount of money Hall School currently needs in order to maintain its current status. So thank you for all the work you're doing.
Okay, thank you, Judy. And, next person?
Donna Cook.
Donna?
Yes. Hi, I'm Donna Cook, and I'm concerned about a couple of things, and I don't know what's true and what's rumor. So I'm concerned that if the option goes to expanding center school, that we might do some sort of eminent domain on the neighbors, which, you know, they're part of our Willington family, and I think that that would not be a wise choice. The other thing is to keep in mind the historical district, and that there's certain homes that are historical, so those can't be part of any kind of adjustment. The other thing is, when I think about spending my money, whether my husband pays for it or I pay for it, it comes out of our family pocket. And when I looked at the total numbers for all the projects, we need to remember that the state portion is just a different pocket of ours and the residents of Willington. Some of it may come from other places, but we still have to bear the burden of that as a resident of the state of Connecticut.
Okay, thank you, Donna. Do we have one more speaker?
Jim.
Jim? Okay, Jim?
Hi, Jim Bulick here. I thought it might be appropriate just to discuss how much does it cost for bonding. I picked a couple of examples. One was a 20-year bond, $15 million, 3.5%. That's just odd round numbers. That would cost us $93,910 a year, or 2.6 mils given our current budget and spending, budget requirements and spending. So if you had a house that was worth $200,000, I could do the math easy in my head. That's $520 per $200,000 of value. I also did an example for if you were to borrow $20 million. If you were to borrow $20 million, that would cost you $125,195 per year, excuse me, per month, or a mill rate of 3.47 mils per year. And again, if you had a $200,000 valued house and property, that would be $694 of cost. And I thought it might be appropriate to just discuss that, and I agree with Donna. I think cost is, the state may or may not contribute the 60% that they have in the past. We don't know yet. We don't know how the budget's shaking out. We thought tolls are going to go through, they did not. So there's a lot of uncertainty in the air. If it was me and I was most focused on priorities and the board's direction, personally I'd be looking at test scores. I would see what I could do to get my kids the highest scores, to have the highest, best probability of getting into any school I wanted to go in the country. And me personally, that would be the focus I would choose. But I thought if you were going to go at least look at this, use some numbers that are pretty close to reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
You can't. No.
Yeah.
Sorry, Emma.
One more. Lisa Finkel.
Lisa.
Hi, I'm Lisa Dinkelman. I live in Wellington, and my son went through the schools here at Zillow Smith now. and I'm very grateful to the schools. I thought they did a wonderful job with my son, and I'm just here to be supportive of you as a Board of Ed and of keeping the school system here in Wilmington a strong one, not sending the kids elsewhere and doing what we need to do that makes sense to keep the school strong. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Sarah?
Hi, I'm Sarah Marcel, and I just want to thank you once again for the great education you gave my son. And I don't think this town really has asked for too much as far as education. We're quoting some house values. Some of them are pretty high. So it's worth you living in a nice house. Well, this is where our kids are going to school every day. They deserve to have working bathrooms, decent classrooms. We're not asking for anything over the top. We're asking for common sense. What our kids deserve, what your kids deserve. I don't see anyone in this town asking for luxury. Common sense, they deserve that. Our kids deserve it. This is about the children. The programs are important. That has nothing to do with the building. They deserve a good, clean building to be in, whatever that might be as the end result. But, this is the Board of Education. This is about students who come to school in our town. It's not about adult things. It's about students. That's why we have the Board of Ed. That's why we have teachers and principals. So we need to take it down. Remember, as adults, we want certain things, but certainly our kids deserve just the basics. Not leaking roofs, defunct bathrooms, leaking gyms. So if you can just think about that for a minute, take it back down to the kids, what they deserve. Not what we deserve, what they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Peter, did you wish to speak?
Oh.
You're up.
Oh,
Yeah, sure.
Peter Wiltintich, 97 Trask Road. Good to see you all again. I had the opportunity to come to your feedback session in July. At that time, I asked the question of why we're limited by these 6 choices. The study was performed by Fryer Associates 2 years ago. Circumstances have changed in many situations for our town fiscally. I imagine the same is true educationally for the school system. And I understand you are not going to open up more choices and you're acting on one of these 6 tonight. I would encourage you to consider the feedback from the community and look at more flexible options that meet the requirements of the time we're in. Reflects more the demographics of where we are now and the fiscal condition of the town. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. Sarah?
I'm Sarah.
Smith?
I'm Sarah Smith, and I'm from 69 Eldridge Road. And while I was listening to everybody, I'm thinking, why did I choose Willington? And education was the reason. And my husband was newly hired at UConn. He could have gone to Mansfield. And I think that we can be fiscally responsible and sensitive to what is happening, in our town and through state funding and that sort of thing. And we can also provide quality education and the tools for our educators to be able to do their job. And for our kids to go to a place that is healthy. The infrastructure is healthy for them. So when we make decisions, it's not just the dollars and cents. It's everything that would work best for the community at large. And without a strong education system, new people are certainly not going to come to this town. We already have other issues that are a deterrent, like the crumbling foundations. But if you know your kid can come here, and there are wonderful teachers in our schools, and my son went to E.O. Smith and was very well prepared and did very well at E.O. Smith. So I'm grateful to the education that he received here in our town. And thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Okay, thank you very much. We really appreciate your feedback and hope to represent everybody's ideas. So thank you for coming out and sharing your thoughts. Communications?
We just had the one communication that I shared with you via email from someone that couldn't attend tonight. And I, even though there was no survey with it, I attached it to the comments of concerns.
Okay, thank you. I don't believe we have a chairperson's report this evening, so we'll move right on to superintendent reports.
All right, so resignations. We have several resignations, or retirement as well. Bethany Scafidi resigned from kindergarten. She actually is going back to where she was. And we had Lori Polini resign from preschool. Paul Nash has retired from Paul School. Paul, obviously, has been here for a long, long time. And Kate Lefak, the library media specialist, has resigned. I think that's, when your position comes up 2 years in a row on the block, that's the type of thing that happens. And then just yesterday, I got a letter of resignation from Mike Choi, 7th grade math teacher. So some big losses in there. We have already hired some dynamic folks. We had an open special education position, and if you remember, we had Rob Ryder was a long-term sub for us in the spring of last year, and he applied for the position and got the position for special ed at Hall. We hired Desiree Daigle, who's a parent, but she'll be a para at Center School. Rose Dwyer is the new Center School principal secretary. Big shoes to fill from Patty, but she's doing great over there already. We just hired Stephanie Bergen, who is going to be the new preschool teacher. Stephanie comes from us. She's a teacher in Rhode Island. She's cross-endorsed. She actually helped to write, she was one of the prime writers for the preschool standards for Rhode Island, so we're looking forward to what she brings. We just hired Becky Swanson for the open kindergarten position, Amy Canoyer for Center School para, and Chrissy Seneschal as a CES para, who is also with us as a sub in the spring. We're interviewing this week for the school counselor position at Hall. To be honest, the library media specialist at Hall School, it's a shortage area. I don't see applications flying in. It's really slim right now. And we literally just posted the math position today, which is also a shortage area. So I've asked I've asked Ken really to get the word out to the HMS staff and also the teachers that were just hired in the last couple of years that have connections in other districts. If somebody wants to come and work in a great district, WIllington, work at Hall School, to get the word out. So some big losses and resignations, but also some great hires.
Do you anticipate filling all of the positions? Will we have some positions that may not be filled? School starts.
I don't know if we'll have them all just because of the timing. We're 2 weeks away at this point in time. We'll make sure we have a qualified candidate in those positions at the time, but it might be a sub for a period of time. It just depends on what comes in for applications. When you have shortage areas, I didn't say the Spanish position. We filled our Spanish position as well. She was hired, so sorry I missed her.
Who do you have?
Blank on her name. Sorry. I'll put that on the next agenda, sorry. But that was a shortage area too, and we had to do a shortage area permit to get her through the certification. She has all of her applications in, but that may be something we need to consider for library media specialist for the math position. I also know that we may have somebody internal for the library position that may be interested in doing a DSAP of sorts, so.
For just, if you have any idea, if anybody gave a reasons why they resigned, especially as a math teacher, Mike, I don't want to spell his name right, wrong.
I have not talked to Mike yet, because I just got it last night, but I always do exit interviews with people, so I've already done an exit interview with Bethany and Lori. I will tell you, financial decision-making is always pretty strong. When you have someone that's a newer teacher that can move up the ladder faster and they can make more money faster, it's, you know,
It's understandable.
I do my, you know, my hopes to them and say, please stay, but I understand their decision. Paul Nash is retired, he's been here for a long time, and I think we know why Kate left as a librarian, so. She's gonna be in her hometown in Stafford, shorter drive. The oil tank, it should be completed tomorrow. They were missing a part. It was back ordered. They've got it. Our final inspection should be soon thereafter. Service station who's putting it in has said it will be done by the start of school, so we can have hot water back in that building. And they said it shouldn't be an issue. We have new phones. The phones went in. There's a box of old phones over there. Huge improvement in communications already. We have caller ID. We can see who's coming in. We've had some glitches. We're ironing them out. We will have some staff training when staff comes back. We've already had some training for people that are already in district, you know, the secretaries, me, principals on the town side as well.
Can you give you a little update to know the caller ID going out has been an issue, and Fred has been working with Robin. Robin put a change order in, so hopefully that will take place so that
They all said town of WIllington going out.
every call, no matter where it is,
Where it came
looks like it's
from.
coming to Robin's, the main number that goes into Robin's office, so even the school.
It
so
should come
people
from
call
Paul's
back.
school, back in center school, superintendent's office, the town office building,
So,
That oil tank is a huge oil tank. The state was involved in that, right?
Yes.
Do they have to inspect?
Oh yeah, our local building inspector and our fire marshal both have to inspect it. The building inspector has already done one, the fire marshal has to inspect when they do the pressure test, and that should be in the next few days, so. It is a big thing. Last thing, you have an invitation for convocation in front of you. It's set for August 26th at the WIllington Firehouse. We chose that location. You're gonna say, why the firehouse, not the schools? We chose that location because it's air conditioned. We're doing something a little bit different this year. And I need a space that is big enough to fit the entire staff. To have round tables, they have the tables there for us. And it just works out for our entire morning, because the entire staff will be on site at the firehouse that morning. Obviously, we would welcome you to join us. The breakfast is 8 to 8:30. Convocation, my opening remarks is really 8:30 to 8:50-ish, 9 o'clock. And then we will be talking about our collective path forward and doing some small discussion groups with a movie. That's a little bit about 21st century learning, and we've talked about that in learning spaces. And so you're welcome to come to all of it, or you can just come for breakfast and my opening remarks. It's up to you.
is it? Yeah.
It's that Monday that, was it not saying?
It's not date on it.
Monday the 26th.
create your own lecture.
Tomorrow. We looked at that form.
You know what it is.
My apologies. The intent, basically what we'll do for the movie is we'll watch about a 30-minute block at a time. We'll do 3 30-minute sections. And there's going to be a small group discussion about what you saw at the tables. We'll have everyone there. The idea is that everybody in the district knows where we're going. Custodians, teachers, paraprofessionals, administrators, you name it, they're there, so that they all know where we're headed. So you're welcome to join that. And then our board retreat is August 22nd. I hope you all have that in your calendar. It is from 4 to 6 p.m. I will be doing an agenda for that, and it is at the WIllington Public Library.
Phil, I'm going to be on vacation, and could I call into it by chance?
I don't see why not.
Even on a cell phone, or does the new phone system have?
They don't have it there.
Okay, we don't have that,
I
yeah.
wonder if
Take
we
that
could
one,
bring
but-
that over. We can find out.
All right, here you go.
I
Test the limits of the new system, right?
Robin's out for the next 3 days, but I'm sure Brenda can.
Okay, if not, I can maybe call in on my cell phone, to another cell phone.
Yeah.
Okay, I hate to miss it, but it's too far to come back. All right, our financial report,
All right.
budget update.
The financial report, the only thing you're not gonna see on there, and I looked at center schools when I got the financial report, and said 0%, that can't be right. The grant, Title I grant offset, the salary is paid by the grant, is still in here. That's why it shows as 0%. So there's probably closer to 60,000 plus in the center school account. It's not all encumbered. Everything looks pretty normal at this point in time for this point of the year. All of the positions are encumbered. If it's salary, it's encumbered. You see that special ed looks like there's 51% in there. The reason why is any of those bigger ticket items, special ed transportation or outplacement tuition, those are not billed yet. So it's still in there. They're not encumbered. Same thing, curriculum staff development, that's where all the professional development money comes from. So that's why it looks like there's a lot left. But we're pretty consistent for where we are at this time of year. Any questions about what you see there? We'll do a final 18-19 rundown too for last year's budget. Next meeting, we'll also have the school activity account and we'll also have the food services account. So we will have all that data as well next meeting.
Okay, very good, thank you, Phil.
In the salary section, we had some changes with retirees and people leaving and so forth. And so, assuming when at the highest level, new staff will come in a little slightly lower, maybe,
Depending
on who's hired.
Correct.
So you've encumbered the figure here, but that's not realistic because of the fact that we did lose 4 or 5%.
Yeah, and it's spread out between the positions. So what will happen is once we're at a better spot with hiring, Donna will then look at all of the numbers and if we need to transfer some money to balance the salaries out. Could be that we made out better because we have people that we've hired at a lower amount, or it could be that we need to transfer money from, if there's some money in fringe or something like that. Make sense?
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the minutes of the July 2019 meeting?
Yeah, I'll move that we approve the minutes.
Second.
Any discussion? Any corrections noted? Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes of the July 2019 meeting? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Aye.
Okay, Tiara and Elena? Okay, abstaining. Okay, next we have our food service payroll review.
So, this time of year, each year, you have to determine the increase for food services for employees. Remember, this is a group that's not in a union, that we just contract directly with them. This is for the 19-20 year. You do have to increase salaries because of the minimum wage requirement. That is, we have to pay $11 an hour starting in October. I would encourage you just to start that from the get-go based upon the year. The minimum wage will basically go up $1 a year, which is basically going to force your hand with this group over the next 5 years. You won't have a lot of decision-making beyond today, because as you go up, they're going to be making less than what the minimum wage would be. You'd have to bump up the minimum wage. So I think we've been consistent with the negotiating with the groups. If there's someone that is currently under, and I didn't give you the individual people and their salary numbers, but if there's someone that will not based upon a percentage increase, reach the minimum wage, we would bump them automatically to minimum wage, to the $11 an hour, okay? The number that has, if you want to match what you've provided to the WEA and WSS unions, you could do that and move along.
What would the difference be if we?
The dollar amount,
Yeah, say if we matched it to the support group?
the actual dollar amounts, it's under $2,000, I believe is the number. I don't have the exact number in front of me.
Total?
Yes,
Total money?
yes.
So the payroll bills will be generated through the receipts.
Self-funded, yeah, they, correct, yes. So when this program runs itself,
And with the increase, we can anticipate we'll be able to cover it.
correct.
And if not, we have to subsidize it, right?
That was our discussion last time, yeah. Correct.
How many people are we talking about? How many employees?
6. So you have the food services director, and then you have basically 2 and 2 with a floater. They're actually going to be down a person from what they were this past year, but the hours were adjusted. So she's hoping that they're not going to need as many hours. Linda Nichols is the one that retired from center school, and so Stephanie Waite has taken on a bigger role there, and so her salary has already been worked out based upon the role. She's not someone that would see an increase if depending on what you get.
If we were to try to come closer to the contract, what would that look, how far away from minimum wage would that be per person?
Only one person's impacted.
Okay. That would be the director?
No.
Oh, there's only one person who's
correct.
not earning minimum wage
Correct.
already. Okay.
Correct, and she's the newest employee,
Okay.
and the others are slightly above it.
Okay. So if they're above it, they can stay where,
They would get whatever raise you give them.
okay.
So that's why I say if you match, you have 6 employees, and basically 2 of them, this doesn't apply to because of new roles, but there's 4 of them that you need to determine what percentage you would give them if you would match what you've given to the teachers, the percentage to the teachers, and match what you've given to the non-certain that you've negotiated.
And that would bring them up to the $11.
One,
For the 2 that are not quite earning that.
there's only one that's not.
One that's not, okay.
Remember, this is a group.
Was there about a 2% increase that we did on the
275.
275?
That was total dollars with step and general wage increase.
And when you said, Phil, that it would be $2,000, would that be at that 2.75?
Approximately, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Some of that depends on the number of hours, but it's well within that. Remember, this is a group that is not unionized and does not get insurance. One person, the director, is the only person that gets insurance in this group.
And they're 10-month employees, so they don't get, they don't work summers.
You are correct. And they're a dynamite crew that gets us what we need for our food service program.
Well, for that reason, I would like to make a
I have
motion
a
that we,
question.
oh, I'm sorry.
As we move into the new year, do we have money in that account to take care of the wages?
Yes.
300,000?
Yes, the last 2 checks came in from the state reimbursement, and so that account is satisfactory now to cover the wages once we start. Good question.
So I would like to make a motion that we give them that 2.75 increase. for this school year.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Any abstentions? Okay. Did that pass unanimously? I didn't see. Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you for their hard work. They deserve all of it. And now Superintendent Stevens is going to make a facilities survey report for us, the result of the survey that was due on August the 1st.
Sorry if I'm crackling here. My allergies have caught up with me, so. Okay. You there with me?
Yeah.
Okay, so, wanted to start tonight with the facility study final survey results. You have a copy of the presentation. This is the final, all of the data is in, all the surveys have been collected. There are 255 surveys that were collected online and paper copies. Anything that was done in paper copy was put online, encoded, and surveys were located in the library, the schools, transfer station, several businesses in town, and on our websites. It went out 3 times with the town message system and school messenger system, and we had 101 people submitted their name on their survey. There were 4 repeats. I know that there was a concern about could someone just click this and complete the survey 45,000 times? And it doesn't appear that way. I know that 2 of the repeats are spouses, and one of the spouses entered the name for them, and then the other spouse did it. One person, I believe, was intentional and asked about this specifically, and the last person, I don't know if it was intentional or not. There were 76 additional comments and questions submitted, which was the last question on the survey, and I broke that out and I have coded that for you. It's a lot to look at. It's the big paper, but I just organized it for you. So to go through what you see there, let's see if this is going to work. So this is, question 1 was, how familiar are you with the 2017 facility studies completed? I did not use the data to say that if you were not familiar with the study, we discounted something, and I want to be clear about that. It didn't matter. We were just trying to determine, did we get the word out? And based upon that, I'd say we did a decent job at getting the word out. 1 in 10 had no knowledge of it, but all of this data has been out on the website as far as the facility study and the roundtables and the community discussions. So there's your numbers for that. Question 2, how familiar are you with the facility needs and the process the school board is using? Again, you can see that I'm well informed, I have some familiarity. I think some of that leads back to the budget process and talking to you about CIP as well. If you have any questions. Question 3, we're going to get into the meat of this. I would only support performing the minimum needed building maintenance projects, no renovation or no new school building. I did this just like I did last time for the preliminary results that were presented. I joined together strongly agree and agree, and I joined together disagree and strongly disagree. And if you look at the stats here, 22% strongly agree or agree that they would only support the minimum. 66.7 disagree or strongly disagree. Questions about what you see there? Okay. Question 4, I would support having all our students in one preschool through grade 8 school. 64.7% strongly agree or agree. 20%, 20.4% disagree or strongly disagree.
What was the number, I'm sorry, Phil, what was the number for agree and strongly agree? Oh, it's at the
There.
bottom, thank you.
Yep, right at the bottom.
Yeah.
Question 5, I would support renovating to like new condition one of our schools. 46.3% strongly agree or agree, and 33% disagree or strongly disagree. One of the reasons that the to like new condition was put into the wording of the survey for clarification was, as you know, renovate to new is what the state term is used. To new, like new condition is what the state uses for reimbursement. That's not Phil Stevens made up. Questions about number 5?
I noticed that there's a big neutral.
There is a big neutral.
Section, so we're 20%. So I guess I'm assuming that's probably people that are not quite sure, depending on the cost.
Correct. Question 6, I would support building one new preschool through grade 8 school. 53% strongly agree or agree, and 37.7% disagree or strongly disagree. This number came down some in the last about 100 surveys that were complete. Questions? Question 7. I would support building one new preschool through grade 5 school and paying for students in grade 6 through 8 to attend school in a neighboring town with a loss of decision-making for students in grades 6 through 8. 8.6% strongly agree or agree. 79.6% disagree or strongly disagree. Someone thought that with my putting with loss of decision-making of students in grades 6 through 8 into this question, that it skewed the data. I think that you have to have the information. So that's why it was placed in there.
I noticed reading the comments that several people thought that it would be the same as what we do on Region 19. It was
Correct.
saying, well, we do it now with Leo Smith, and it's not the same because Leo Smith, we are up in the board, while the other one we wouldn't be.
Correct. It was, and I'll get to this when I get to the comments, but I thought it was really interesting because some of the comments could tell, you could see there needed to be some clear information because they didn't quite have the entire picture yet. And some of those questions came out tonight in public to speak that I'll address. But you can see that coming out. But I think it's important to show that there is no decision-making because there's no agreement at this point in time.
A 1 year, they have 1 year to tell us that they no longer wish to be in that agreement. And then we don't have a school, we don't have teachers, we don't have anything to replace it with.
Correct. Question number 8. I believe a renovated or new building would attract new families to Willington. 60.8% strongly agree or agree. 23.2% disagree or strongly disagree. This is another question that there was several comments about why are you asking this question. And it was really to get a sense of is this a way that people feel it would bolster the community. So that's why it was there. The next and probably the most interesting to me was question 9. And sorry it's small for the folks in the audience, but I thought it was important to actually put the numbers in. This is question 9, and it's you had to rank highly unimportant to highly important. 1 is blue and 5 is purple, so they're ranking each item. And the numbers you see along the bottom, the 14, 8, 45, 70, and 118, those you can line up right in order of what is in the bar graph above. So 14 would be blue, 8 would be red, 45 would be orange, 70 if yellow, whatever color that is, 70 would be green, and 118 would be the purple.
And that's the number of people responding.
Correct, the number of people where they checked that box. So the other thing I did on this was I put in bold the two numbers for each item that were ranked the highest, had the most people respond at that level. So you could see energy efficiency is important to people. This was the one that kind of shocked me, that on-site outdoor field space of the people that were surveyed, that completed surveys, this was extremely important. There was 190 people that thought that was important. This is the one that shocked me too, because I thought if people would be really interested in having, if there was a new school built, that it should be near the center of town, or if we renovated it, it would be near the center of town. And this to me says, doesn't matter to them. There was a couple comments in the comment section about it, bless you, but for the most part, this was not important to them. Same thing with aesthetically pleasing. It was kind of neutral. Technologically equipped was important to people. I think it was actually one of the highest. Community space for after-school programming was okay. Economically sound long-term investment was extremely important to people, but the impact on taxes was not as important to people compared to that one, which I thought was interesting. So it just gives you a sense of, you try and identify some priorities, what people would be looking at, what's important to them. If we were talking about these projects, we had some things on here, what's important to them. And this is only a few of things that, we could have asked about, but they were key. Questions about what you see there? Okay. The additional.
Thank you, that was very helpful.
Yeah, you're welcome. I had it color-coded, but it got real busy, so the color. The additional comments. So Brenda emailed you this, and then I said, I have to do more than that. So I took all of the comments, and I gave you a big monster printout. I hope you all got one. And I will summarize so you can look at these. These will, I would like the board to determine if they want all the comments out. I think for transparency, you can put all this data out and take names off. I don't know that we said that, they would put their names, we would put the surveys out there with their names on it, how they took the survey. So it's up to you how you want me to put the information out on the website. I can do exactly what I've just done there with that presentation. That was my intent to put that out there. You have to determine if you want all these comments out, and I can just do it this way. So I tried to take the comments, because they could respond any direction they wanted. They could say something they loved, something they hated. They could say I was crazy. They could say whatever they wanted to connect to the facility study work. And I tried to lump them into something that could be grouped by theme. And so what I did was, these are the themes, and I did this myself, and then I went through it with Brenda just to make sure I wasn't missing something, that it was going into the correct category. Do nothing means I don't want to do any of these projects, zero, nothing, spend no money. No new building means someone made a comment that just said, we don't believe there should be, the town can't build a new building. They did not say anything else about the other projects. They just said, no new building. There were 4 people that said, we believe we should just regionalize, join in with Ashford, join in with Mansfield, and connect their, Mansfield building, just join them. There were 3 people that said no regionalization whatsoever. 3 people that said no one pre-K through 8th grade school. And I think based upon the comments I saw, that they're most concerned about 8th graders with preschoolers on the bus and hallways, and that's not how you would renovate a building or building a building. It's not how you do that. 1 pre-K through 8th grade school, 2 people commented on that. 17 people were in favor of building a new school. 8 people build a new school or renovate, and 11 comments about renovate, and there were 18 others because they were kind of all over the place. So what I'm going to try and do for you is I'm going to try and summarize what was in each of those sections so you get a sense of, there was a lot of repetition of what people were looking at.
Oh, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Just to clarify for myself.
Yes.
This comment section, it wasn't a question. We didn't, this is what people in their comments.
Chose to comment.
Chose to comment. It wasn't a question of make a choice.
Nope, it was just, do you have any additional comments that you would like to
Okay,
make?
so this is coming from the public?
This is what they picked.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And so there were 76 total, I think. And there is definitely some overlap, Tracy, in some of those. Someone, wrote a half page and they addressed multiple things. And I just tried to get whatever the core was. But I'm going to give you a sense of what each of the themes are by the comments. And I basically just highlighted a section from each to give you a sense. Yes.
So it's possible that the comments reflect some issues they have, but they may have assumed that you already know where they stand on the options, according to how they answered those questions.
I did not go back to there. I went strictly off the
Right.
comments, so I did not match up.
I'm just saying that the comments might.
If it was not clear, it went into other. If it was clear where it went, and again, trying to organize these a bit so you're getting a picture of what people were referring to when they made comments. That was really the intent of this. See if this helps. So, do nothing basically was, we need to see the state in a better financial health. The town can't support a huge tax increase. Wrong time to make education facility changes. Town should conduct a townwide facility needs study, and school needs plans should be part of that plan. Less taxes. We have fewer students. We need to keep the good teachers. They're more important. The town is already running at a poverty level above state average. So that's kind of a clump, a picture for you of what was in the do nothing section that I gave you. The no new was basically population is decreasing and we don't need a new school. Regionalize. E.O. Smith is a very successful model, and if we could do this for 6 through 8 in a similar manner, they would support that, and regionalize with Mansfield or Ashford. The no regionalize was, I'm strongly against sending students out of town for school. I think we've heard that, and the survey data shows that as well. No one pre-K through 8th grade school. I believe it would be inappropriate for a preschooler to be in the same school as an 8th grader. That comment was shared several times in different manners. One pre-K through 8th grade school. One school solution makes the most sense given enrollment and state reimbursement. One K through 8 school probably makes the most sense if we can figure out a way to separate the youngest kids. They also went on to talk about different busing, again, pre-K, K students with 8th grade students. The build a new school comments went to spending a little more money now to build a brand new pre-K through 8 makes much more fiscal sense than patching here and there. There's no reason to put a temporary Band-Aid on a problem. One brand new, up-to-date, efficient building. Only long-term solution. Too many variables with renovating these old buildings. Building a new school would help to guarantee our town future. Yes, we need a new school, but we also need a new town office building and improved fire and emergency services. A facility that can generate income, and our children deserve better. I shared more on that one because obviously there was more in that one, not because I'm biased. The next one is new school or renovate. There was several comments about a new facility or renovated facility having an auditorium and community spaces such as a gym and an auditorium, and AC was a must, and that was written on a couple of the items. Straight renovation. Fire suppression system sprinklers would be a very wise investment, as well as ADA compliance and repair of the outside curbing, walks, and paved surfaces. We should not throw away the resources and investments in school buildings that the town has already made. And then the other, I did not go through and highlight because they're a bit all over the place as far as there wasn't a theme. If you want to look at those for a second, ask if there's any questions. Some of them were simple things like you should focus on test scores, it's the board's decision, thanks for all your hard work. Someone also said convert back to a K-12. They would not want to see the price tag on that. Questions about how there was one unclear. I just put on the bottom. I was not sure what that meant. But I wanted to give you a sense of what was there and try and lump them together so you could get a sense of what people were trying to address. Questions about what you see on the comments?
Was that correlated with this?
Yes. Correct, and if there was a couple that were, like the no regionalization says 3, there was a +1 that came from someplace else that it was stronger. That's what they were trying to get at. But I didn't do huge overlaps. It was 1 or 2. Some of these could have a huge overlap in others. Do you want these comments to be public? If you need to determine that.
What would stop us from letting them be public? Let's be public.
Well, I don't. It's just a matter of do you want them on the website? I mean, you can FOI these all you want. The question is, do you want to put them on the website with the survey?
I don't think we have any reasons to hide it.
I don't
People
mind.
have different opinions.
I agree.
And they,
These are already public.
Yeah, they are, but the question is, you could, but we're making it more public. I think that, and that's why I asked, transparency-wise, do you want someone's name on it?
Can we take the names off?
It's just an Excel spreadsheet with all of the data, and you could take the name off.
Well, I think before you put a name, you have to ask. I mean, I know that by putting a name, it implies that they don't mind, but I don't know.
There's only a couple of
I mean, I'm
examples
kind of
of them,
neutral.
right?
No, I'm talking about all of the data.
Oh,
The entire, it's basically, I would share my presentation along with this, but I can put the entire spreadsheet in so someone can see someone's answers all the way across the line.
My only suggestion would be to clarify some misconceptions. So in a case where someone said, we want to regionalize with Mansfield and Ashford, it's not really an option at this point, so that they could understand.
well, then we will have to answer all the questions. I
That's-
think if we
Yeah.
leave it, we just post it as it is. And if to speak about the name, what's the goal for the name? There is really no goal for the name. We want the opinions. I think just plain opinions and no questions about names. That's my opinion.
I agree about not using the names, I think.
The one thing that came up at the start that you said that there was, it's not an option to the regionalization. Somebody at one of our meetings said, well, can we pursue that as an option? Do we know for a fact that it's not an option? Now it's 2 years later. Maybe Ashford has changed their mind. Maybe Mansfield has changed their mind. And I thought that was, a strong voice that said that.
In reality, there are much more options than just the 6 or 7. It's just we are considering 6 options suggested by this exact company. By looking at all these reviews, even if we will mention they're all correct, which I believe they are, we don't have a full picture really.
What are
There are
options
other
are you thinking?
options.
Like what?
Like, easy. We have in 8 years, we are done with paying off bond for the library. The money for that bond are already incorporated in our taxes. For those 8 years, we can get prepared for the project like this. We could open a special account, and sometimes we do have money left. So how about every money which we have left over, hopefully we will, we can just put it away in the fund. For 8 years, hopefully we could make money. We could make maybe 1.5, 2 million.
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
You know, the library, when
Yes.
we build the library, we're still paying off the bond.
Right.
So that money, we're not gonna be paying it all the time. We have 8 years left on that bond. So if we wait, if we take 8 years for more research, for collecting
Okay,
money,
I understand now.
and then in 8 years, when we are done with that bond, we have free money. So, which are already there.
So let me ask you this, well, how is that, so you're saying that basically don't make any repairs? Because we already have the option of just doing the capital improvements, am I correct?
In 1 year.
Capital improvement.
Option 1 is in 1 year.
Oh, in 1 year,
With
okay.
bonded
Oh.
money, with bonded money.
Correct.
Right.
Well, does it include the roof? Our capital improvement for this year?
The option that's in is option 1 has the roofs in it.
So the roof is supposed to be put when? In according with our plan, this coming year?
No, it's approved already,
It's approved, so we can
So
put it
next
on.
year.
So no leaks are gonna be there.
but it's, the
It's part of
point
option
is.
1.
Right, right.
Yes.
Part of our
But we still have to bond how much?
No. That's not a part of option 1. It's a part of our capital improvement plan. So whether we go with any of these options or we don't go with those options, we're still gonna put a new roof on because it's needed. Then another plan, another suggestion, for example, we can start talking to Wholesale Association and maybe we can try to make a contract with them so they just would give us that building. It's a process, we can't just decide questions like this within a month or 2 or 3. But if we start the process of possible moving in different directions, okay, let's try to get the building. Let's
So,
try to
and
find
then
a way.
what will we do with the
Well-
building once we get it?
Well, first of all, like for example, Woodstock Academy. I just checked, I just had it a couple days ago, it's 146 years old. It's the best education in New England. So 146. I was inside.
Debatable, but that's okay.
No, it's 90%, let's say 90% of graduates go to the university of their choice. It's a big number,
I
okay?
understand that, let's
With
not talk
lots
about
of
that. That's
international
a
students too.
very debatable.
No, I
statement,
understand, but it's 146 years old, so you know what, I tell you the truth, I talk to many people, I kind of don't fully trust to this because of the name, optional. So I just worked hard, tell you the truth, last 3 weeks. I just took off and I would stop at houses, random houses, especially when I see people outside. And I one-on-one talk to people. I talk to roughly 70, 80 people, tell you the truth. I expected people to be here. From those people, only one lady who said, well, I think I'm going to support it, but when I explained one of the options, she had questions. The rest of the people, many of them had children in whole school. They would say, what's wrong with our schools? And their children are in whole school particularly. And I'm not trying to disregard this opinion. I know there are different opinions. I'm not trying to say, oh, no. I'm just saying there is still a big category of people whose opinion is not included in there. And I was shocked that from those people, I actually have a list of those people, so I didn't just talk, not just empty words, okay? I would say 90% of those people had no idea what's going on, even although their kids are in whole school.
Right.
They still had no idea. They did not understand the level of how fast it is moving. They just heard something.
All right, I just want to comment about what you said. We know that there are a few people that vote in town. That's always been a problem. I think we've tried very hard to get people's opinion. People's opinions have to be given being informed with specific questions. That's why we have survey. That's the semi-scientific way to do it. And if people don't respond, that is a problem, right? once we move forward, whatever that might be, and there's gonna be a town vote again, there will be an opportunity for the people who don't know or whatever to inform themselves and come to vote. I mean, you can't just assume what people wanna vote if you don't know. They have to show up, they have to
I agree
make
with
their
that,
voice
of
heard.
course. Of course, but I think our problem of our town is where for too long, people in our town used to be in quiet corner. That quiet corner, people are used to the situation that somebody is doing it. They did not know that there could be serious change, and they consider for $300,000 house, $1,000 minimum increase in taxes. I consider it a big increase. It's a substantial increase. Plus, I wanted to mention something else. There was statistical information 3 months ago online. I mentioned it in one of the meetings that 23% in our schools, 23% of our kids in schools qualify for the free lunch because they're on the poverty level. Every fourth child, let's forget about children, let's say families. 23% of families in our town are on the level of close to the poverty. We're going to increase their taxes? Okay, even if they don't live in 300,000 house, let it be 200,000 house. Very hard to find a house cheaper than 200,000.
They're probably renting, that would be my guess, but.
Well, if not all of them, I don't. Every first child is renting. I don't know.
No, I'm just.
23%.
I think that
every fourth
what I'm
child.
saying is those are big assumptions that we don't.
That's
really
official
know.
information came
No,
out
that
from
is
the
the
town.
23%,
from
but
the
saying that they, I mean, that's the fact, you're right, 23%. Everything else is assumptions, right?
Well, 23% children on poverty level qualifying for the free lunch. It's serious number.
Yes.
Every first child, it means every first family with children are not really prosperous in our town. Are we just going to ignore it? So I also think it's my opinion. I'm sorry, I missed last 2 meetings. We were away. I apologize. That's why probably I collected a lot. I appreciate you listening. I think it's important to think about in every option, whatever option you consider. First of all, to think that there are always other options, and not just these 6, 7 options or whatever I said. When I talk to people, there are many more options there. People are very creative when it comes, especially to money. We just maybe somehow we can find a way to get people's opinion. Make every 3 months town meeting. Please, everybody is welcome. Let's just brainstorm those options. Let's take a year, not 3 months. 3 months, most of my neighbors were gone. I was gone for 2 months. So I can't agree with that 3 months of this survey enough, especially that it is summer. I would urge people I would ask you to at least keep it longer available, not just make assumption on 3 summer months.
Okay, thank you, Elena. The people that you spoke to that had students at Hall, they should have received it in their digital backpack, the opportunity to take the survey. And so we've really worked really hard to try to get it out there. And you may be talking to that, 30% or something that did not know what was, or whatever that number was.
I wasn't picking though, tell you the truth.
No.
I was just stopping, randomly introducing myself. I want to know people's real opinion.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, well, thank
As
you.
opposed to not real, you're saying.
well,
I just,
see.
some of your words are very loaded, I just wanted to make sure I understand what you're saying.
I tell you the truth.
It's because real opinions are compared these,
Real
I
opinion.
find these as being real opinions.
Well, because I could go online and click 10 times. And
No,
you
but
wouldn't see.
You can.
You could, but.
Do you want to see the stats? You can see the time
Right,
things.
that's
I don't
what
think
I'm
that
trying to
happens.
say.
Do you really think people have the time to sit around and click 10 times?
Oh, that's very
Seriously?
simple.
I mean, I don't think that
That's
people.
very simple.
I'm just,
Let him explain.
Sure.
Everything is timestamped.
It is.
So I can see what time, even if you didn't put your name in, I can see if you sat and you put the same results in over and over and over, and every 2 minutes you're clicking, you're clicking, you're clicking. It's not, do you know where our rushes were? When I sent out a messenger and she sent out a messenger out of town. That's where suddenly people got the email, I better do this right now or I'm gonna forget about it. That's where people completed them. And the last one was the, hey, this is your final chance, complete it. That's where our rush came in. We got very, very few surveys, paper surveys.
I'm not
Very
saying that's a
Can we
lot
speak
of
to the
work.
paper surveys that were in the town hall, Phil? People would ask us what the box was for and what the survey's for. We would tell them just very simply, it's a survey regarding a school facility study. It's there if you'd like to fill it out. Most people would look at it, put it down and walk away.
And just as a fact, it was
Sarah,
also,
Sarah, we'll have a present, we'll have a.
So that
I just
was,
wanted to
Present
fact,
is she
so for the
can-
paper surveys that we had here in the town hall, that's what I saw most often. People would pick them up, look at them, and then put them down. So I don't.
And
I know.
just for clarification, because we're talking about options, and I think it's important that, and you see this in the questions, in the comments that people made. People still don't know. And it's, you know, the board still doesn't have all of the answers. I don't expect us to. We're trying to rule out things that don't make sense. That was the purpose of the survey, just to get a snapshot of what are people feeling, what's the temperature of the water. If they came back and said, listen, we can't afford anything, and that was the data you got, that's information based that you add to your bag. There is no eminent domain piece that's out there right now. The board does not have the right, the town does not have the right to take any property in this town. So as part of an option, and if you see land acquisition built into these options, 4A and 4B really, it's to purchase additional land if they could around that. It's $750,000 that's built into it in those options. And if someone said no, there's not a thing you could do about it. And I have said publicly that if you pick 4A and you want to renovate Center School, and now that we know that people really value their fields on site, to purchase all the land that you would need to have those fields on site would be millions. It would be millions of dollars. You'd be looking up Y Road, you'd be looking down 74, any piece that touches Center School that you had to purchase, you would be looking at millions of dollars. And as soon as someone knows that, if I were one of those homeowners, I would simply say, $2 million for my house, thank you. So there is no eminent domain. The town does not have the right to do that. I think that conversation started when the church property across the street was open, and it was for sale, and it's no longer for sale. The other thing about the number of options here, and I think again along the same lines, is I agree with you, Lena, that there are lots of other options that are not on the table. We're trying to get some direction here. Because these, and this is why I said to you last meeting, you need to start to eliminate some, because we're still out here. We're still in clouds in the big picture, but we have some more data and we have some more answers to start to cool down. If the water's not right to build or to renovate or to do any of these costly projects, then what is the next step? What is the next option? And I think CIP is always there. That's not one of these options. CIP is just what you apply for every year. So you have to determine, you're just making a recommendation. You can make any recommendation you want to the Board of Selectmen, and they could say yes, or they could say no. So I pulled up, just for the board, if you want any clarity, because I had heard this and I heard it I saw it in the surveys, I heard it in public to speak tonight. If you want any clarifying information, I pulled up the community engagement presentation of what's there. Yes, the roofs are in option 1, even though we have applied, and I applied for them intentionally because they need to get done. That cost would come out of option 1 if you choose to do them now. If you don't choose to do them, but you choose option 1, obviously we wouldn't do it now. We wouldn't apply for that. But the idea is that every option that's on here is money that's bonded. Options 1, 2, and 3 are options that do not see savings from elimination of staff because you're still in 2 buildings. Options 4, 5, and 6 see savings in staffing because of duplicate staffing and you're in 1 building. But I think it's important, if you want me to go through any of the pieces that you had specific questions about, I pulled up the presentation. Are there any particular questions regarding the options that will clarify some of the things that are out there?
I don't have questions about that, I just have some comments about the discussion.
Okay, Tracy?
Yeah, I can follow, whatever.
Either way.
No, go ahead.
First thing, I feel like, personally, the survey is one piece of the puzzle. This process has been going on for at least 5 years, since Erica was on the board and I attended
Right,
budget
some of us.
workshops and different times at Hall School. I was the only one in the room besides the board and the superintendent, and they were discussing what can we do with our schools, and some of these options that are in the facility study came from that. So we're talking already 5 years at least. I'm not even positive of the timing because I'm bad with numbers, but we're going back years. We've already discussed this. Facility study came out 2 years ago, and it was presented. There were meetings with the town. There was town meetings where a whole bunch of people came to Center School. I had started gathering information there even before I thought about being on this board. So there's already information, and that stuff I'm sure is somewhere, discussion from that perhaps is in a different discussion. I've attended meetings in Mansfield with members from Willington Board of Education, Mansfield Board of Education, people from the state coming to discuss options of regionalization or sending our students in paying tuition. Another piece of the puzzle. That information is available out there. We've talked about it some before. When our superintendent retired and we had to, or resigned and we had to get a new superintendent, we put things on the back burner for a couple of years because we had an interim superintendent. Our buildings are sitting there not having any, they're getting maintained with Band-Aids to take care of what has to be taken care of, but we're not moving in a forward direction. Now I'm hearing, let's wait for the library bond to be paid for before we pay attention to the schools that are now going to keep failing more and more, and our kids are going to be sitting here. Eventually we're going to have a problem where to shut them down because we might have a leak that doesn't happen during vacation, that happens at another time, and is not contained in a room that's not a classroom. It's more widespread. Very concerning to me as a citizen in our town with kids and as a teacher. And I look at these options. I don't see these options as set in stone, everything that's in the facility study. I say, okay, this one says maintain 2 schools, this, we just fix what we can with capital improvement. The next one is maintain 2 schools but renovate them new. I see them as pieces, but I don't see that we have to do everything that's in them. I think we're making I feel like we're making a recommendation to the town, to the First Selectman's office to say, this is where we think the town wants us to go, this is what we're voting on. And then you work out some of that other stuff as you go through and say, do we want to make an auditorium that we can use other things for, that's open to the public to rent or whatever? Do we, the options get changed here and there within that. Do we buy a new piece of property? Do we use an existing piece of property to build new? I may be wrong in my thinking here because I'm not really, I'm an educator, I'm not a structure, an engineer or a builder, but that's where I see that. And then I see the next steps and saying, okay, we make our recommendation, it goes to the First Selectman's office and the Selectmen's committee. They decide, okay, we like it or we don't like it. If they like it, a committee is formed of people from different areas in the town. And it's out of our hands. Maybe some of us will be on that, maybe some of us won't. But it's not what's on that screen that we saw in the facilities presentation that's exactly what's going to go to the vote. And that's the biggest piece at the end. Whatever comes out of the committee, if there's a committee formed, goes to the town, and they get to come out and vote. And perhaps before then, there's town meetings and there's other discussion where once we've set it down to this is the option we're talking about, we go with that or we don't go with that. If it gets voted down, it goes back to the round table, waiting 8 years and then starting the process over again. It's going to take us 3 years to get through to begin building to begin with. Doesn't make sense for it to me. And I understand the state of our town, but our kids, right now, we have kindergartners who in 8 years are going to be in high school. We have not served them as a board with our goals that we set out to have if we are not thinking towards the future for them right now, not in 8 years. Because that's a whole other generation of kids going through. And it's already been 5 years, so we're already, my kid who 5 years ago was at Center School is going to high school next year. These options don't even affect her. But I care deeply about every kid in Willington from now till I leave this town, which I don't see that happening in my lifetime necessarily. So that's where I just,
Okay, thank you, Tracy. Karen, did you have something?
I don't know if this is the right time, but since the agenda says like eliminating options, can we add 2 options that I think have come up through the survey, which is one, just follow the CIP instead of doing it all in year 1. And the other one is build a new school somewhere else. Because those were mentioned, right? And it looks like from what you just said about center school and the fact that outdoor facilities are a priority among the people surveyed, of course, then making center school new or renovators new doesn't seem like an option at this point.
It doesn't meet that need. It would be very challenging to meet that need.
Right, so if we're trying to get rid of options that are not feasible or reasonable, then maybe we should add, like what Elena was saying, don't do anything, just keep fixing it here and there based on the CIP. That would be an option.
I think those exist already. The CIP is what we do every year now.
Oh, so these are additional options, you're saying?
That's
Because I
default.
think the
Correct.
way,
That's a default.
Wouldn't be an
No,
option.
option
That's
one
not-
is not just
Right.
CIP. Option one is full renovating. That's what it is.
No, option
No.
1
No.
is fixing with bonded money,
With bonded,
13
but all at
million.
once.
It's not renovating
But
new
then
though.
all at once. But we really, the roof is, as far as I remember, is 600,000. We don't have to bond it. We can find that money. If we need AC, which I strongly suggest for our schools, we could plan it. We should put AC in the roof, in our schools. And the roof, we could easily put it on and just wait for 8 years for the better time in respect towards the other. And I don't think that 8 years is really that much. But again, we could keep looking. And also, can I throw some information, which while I was talking to people, different categories of people, I found out that which I did not know, 20 years ago, our both schools were fully renovated. 20 years ago. And they did a special on top of all the renovations, they did an additional renovation to make sure there is no asbestos left.
That
Fully
was
asbestos
state law.
free.
Yeah.
You're wrong.
No.
That's not true.
That's what I was
State
told.
law was for
I know
asbestos
it's
to comply.
There's asbestos in both buildings.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
but
still
it
is.
was removed and whatever could not be removed, it got sealed. That's
Correct.
what it is.
Correct, but there's still asbestos in both buildings.
But I mean,
It's-
children are fully safe.
Right.
But the schools were renovated, were they?
Now,
20 years ago.
if we start messing with sealed asbestos area to renovate, then we may have a problem with the asbestos.
You
If we
have,
start,
They weren't fully renovated like they,
Yeah,
correct.
they do nothing, you know, you don't have to do anything about it, really. But if you start renovating and so forth, then if you have an asbestos in the building, you have to do a lot of testing, and you have to remove the asbestos.
No, it was
And
done.
Both schools do have
it was
asbestos.
sealed, but if you're renovating, you're gonna break
It's
it
gonna
up
come
and
out
it's gonna
again.
come out.
I was told that from 1995 till 2000, sometimes during that time, it was both schools
I have
were
a
fully
full asbestos
renovated.
report. It still exists. There's certain sections that were remediated and there are certain sections of the building that have asbestos.
So just
We
sealed.
sealed some sections off.
and I.
Replacing the tiles in the entire upper wing of Hall School, of Center School, they're all asbestos tiles. So they scrub them, and they remove the wax and they seal them each time. But they're asbestos tiles. If you have to replace those, or you have to take one up, it becomes,
Particular,
yes.
that's where the
Right.
danger is. Can I ask a question?
Can I answer your other question?
Yeah, and,
Because you asked about the 2 options, CIP and the new school.
right,
Option 5 really is what the architect said, that would be the price for the new school because of the land. Depending on where it is,
Oh, okay.
because of the site work. The site work could be more expensive. It just depends on the land, what it looks like.
So there is a land price ground into option 5, like a new, like a
Can
land
you just hit forward
acquisition?
for me, please? I know.
It would be fun.
If you just hit slideshow for me, from current slide, I can get to it top left. And then just click escape when I get to it because it'll keep moving forward. So if you, yeah, click escape right there. So you can see right here, estimated demolition cost, $750 estimated land acquisition, sorry, $750,000, site development, $450,000. And they do that by acre, so you're looking at site development of 5.4 million in this option. That's why this option, that's why he said it would match, because of the site development you would have to do that.
That's development though, not land purchase, right?
He's got $750,000 in there for estimated land acquisition built in.
Phil, if I recall, that option was using one of the 2 pieces of property that we currently have, so it was additional land acquisition. We had asked about that. If we went off-site, that may go up, and the site development number might go up, again, depending on where it was, because there may not be some things like electricity.
But that's my question. What I'm hearing is that there's no option in here that talks about a completely different site.
This is what the architect that wrote this report said. This is the number that is very close to that number because of those numbers that are in there. Because you're not going to demolish anything. If you do a new site, I guess you could. If you want to demolish Center School, you could. I think Erica might want that for a town office building.
No, I'm not talking
but-
about demolition.
Yeah, no,
I'm
see,
talking about-
but that's my point, because that's why he's using that number as a comparable number to a brand new building.
Okay.
But there were
If
some numbers that
you-
could be manipulated to fit into.
If
Someone
you want-
more would go to land, to site purchase and
Correct.
less to
And he-
demolition.
Yeah,
If you get it donated,
all of that.
that's how the library happened. The thing that I think you would have to make sure you do is if that is something that the board is serious and you really want a real number, you ask for specifically what you're looking for. And you look at a parcel of land, and then you have them update that right there. Because right now, that includes demolition of Center School, and a new school with central office, which is me, and we all thought that was expensive. And that's what that 18.7 million was. But you could, and this is, I think Elena's point is, and Tracy, you just reiterated it, is that these are options. You could choose to not put a superintendent's office, central office into, if you built a new school or you renovated, you could choose not to do that. There's savings in that. You could choose to, if you built a new school and the town office building became Center School, that I would just stay with the town office building folks. You could choose those things. That's where you have some moving parts. You're just trying to get the sense of where do we think we're going to get the best option? What is the best option and why? And what really tonight, the purpose is not to identify that. The purpose tonight is really to say, what should we be eliminating? And I tried to put that on the bottom because those are the things that you discussed in your July meeting as things that, option 3, I don't think you could demolish all schools. They're not going to let you do it. They own that building. And so that to me would be an option that you would just remove. Option 2 is the most expensive option out there, and people are having a hard time with 14 million, 18 million. I think they're going to have a real hard time with 27.
And I wanted to make a comment too about the buildings, because one of them is 65, Center School is, one of them is approaching 100. They weren't built originally in the way Woodstock Academy was, which is a kind of a Yale quality campus type building. It's, the quality of construction there is completely different in that era. So we don't have any of those beautiful old brownstone, stone buildings that are going to last all that time in good stead. But the most important thing to me is 21st century learners, which we're really behind on accommodating, because it's not the old game like most of us in this room have experienced with sitting in a classroom with rows of desks. Just isn't, if we're preparing people for for the future. And I think it's kind of borne out in the survey results that technology is a skyrocket concern of people, and I think that speaks to that need. So I feel like, and then I'm switching over to the options. We did sort of have an emerging consensus about removing some of these options just for the particulars. Option 3, because we are, as you just said, Phil, we're unable to demolish Hall School. That's not really going to be something we can do, is demolish Hall and rebuild, so it doesn't make sense to continue that one. Option 1 is similar to 4A in price, and we would be able to, have a pre-K through 8 school renovated as new if we did that option. Whereas option 1 maintains them as they are.
So you're saying
I think,
eliminate option 1, that would be your suggestion?
yeah, I would recommend that unless people have some, as a boilerplate.
Well, I'm taking notes and then we can kind of compare.
Yeah, as a boilerplate, I think we should remove 1. I think 2 is not exciting because it's the most expensive option. That just doesn't make sense to me, to renovate each school as new. And I think, as we just discussed, Hall's a real can of worms. If you start pulling up stuff and pulling down ceilings and completely renovating that as new, I don't see that that's going to be a cheap project. I would even question whether it would come in at that. I think in 3, what I just said. 6, the thing that strikes me about 6 is consolidating and making pre-K through 5, and then, busing out the grades 6 through 8 to Mansfield, Ashford, whoever we would agree to do it and pay tuition and transportation and everything else, but not have representation on those boards, as I understand it. I think that was the hugest reaction from the survey of no way. I think it was almost 80%, 70 or 80%. I'm pretty sure it was 80. On the bar chart page.
7.
Yeah, I think it was 79% or something. So I just, I just don't see that public sentiment is behind that option at all.
Okay. Kiara, do you have anything else to say?
Well, I think Elena thought, as I did, that the CIP option, you're saying it's not an option because it's what we're doing now. But when we ask in the survey, people might decide, well, I don't think we should do anything, we should just continue.
I think option 1 is a little bit deceiving, and I had to have this clarified myself. Default is what we're doing now with CIP
But there is
every
no
year.
default here, you know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Well, default, if you even look at it in terms of people voting, something's voted down, we go right back to where we are now with CIP giving us money every year to make a renovation. This, option 1, we have to bond that money to fix it. So it's not really a CIP option, it's more of a bond to just kind of put a bunch of Band-Aids on, I think.
Okay. Were you done?
Yes, I just wanted to clarify that because I know I had to have that clarified. And so, Elena, that might be what you're talking about when you talk about not, spending the money right now. That would be that
It's
default.
just our regular course. Can I just mention, maybe, I may not, I just heard it, so I can't say I know exact information. But I know Willimantic started to build a new school, I think high school, and they had a budget approved, everything went through the town, so they started to build, and now they have a great lack of money. They're asking for 24 million. Because something came out, I don't know the details, something came out which was absolutely not planned. So we have to be prepared. If we go, we never know. So those numbers are so approximate that we could be just this is minimum, like bare minimum. You know your stuff is going to be high.
And that unpreparedness, I think if we're building a new school on a new site, There may be surprises, but not as many surprises as we would have if we were
Yeah, that's what
to
the
renovate. So I think that is a good point to consider.
That's not entirely true, because when you renovate, you may run into something that is going to result in a change order.
Right.
And you have to have money set aside, a contingency fund for change orders.
Actually, I fully agree, that's the easiest, the most reliable, no surprises way. But if you consider that option, then I think 8 years plan would be the best. Waiting for the money, be done with bond for the library, and during those 8 years, I know it's kind of upsetting long, but safe, we could be open for the lots for sale. We could be looking, we could announce to people, hey, somebody is, we could be on the lookout for the new spot, for the new school. That would give us another chance.
It's also going to be much more expensive in 8 years, by the time we do that.
We're already saying the facility study is 2 years old and we need new numbers. And in 8 years, how much more are those estimates going to go up with the cost of everything?
And there may be even less state
And then-
money available. I think this past year, the school bonding went through. The people that had asked it for bonding for their schools went through. There was a special session that addressed that. So the state is still giving money, for schools. Who knows what's going to happen with that in 8 years also.
Another
I
point.
don't know what building costs are right now, but these numbers are not fixed.
Right.
And even if you do get X number of dollars, you're still going to run into a problem. Do you have enough money to build a gymnasium, for example, or auditorium? Or you're limited because the state has a hand in this, and they will take the amount of money you have. And you can only build a building or a school with the number of students that you have. You can't build extra rooms and things of that kind. And you can't build luxury items in there either. If you want to do that, then the town has to come up with the money for those extras. That's like Glastonbury, Oregon, one place like that, they have schools with additional items that they're thrown in, but they have the money that they can generate from the taxes. And you can't do that in Wellington.
So would someone like to,
Because-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Because our grant is, as far as I know, is fairly level, isn't it? There's very little building going on in town.
From 17 to 18, that's correct.
So you can't anticipate any extra money from that source, really. And the other thing that concerns me too is our budget. When we go and try to get our budget passed through the finance and the finance committee in the town, we are restricted, really. We have a tough going just to pass the budget that we have. I mean, if we go to them with a $30 million budget, then it's going to be a hard sell.
That would go to
some
referendum.
extent. The only thing is, it is amortized over 20 or 30 years. So
But that would go to, that would go to referendum.
That's a town referendum.
Right, but that would go to referendum, not to the Board of Finance, so.
Well, go to the Board of Finance,
and then
you touch base with them, that you're right, to the town on a referendum. But any school like this, and that bothers me because we haven't discussed what is going to be in the school, what kind of classrooms we're going to have, or any of that. We're just looking at the dollar amount.
That's really the only goal.
But there's no denying that this particular item that we are talking about is in the best interest of our students.
Anybody else have a comment before we begin to?
I just had one other comment. We also have to remember, is the other side of what Herb said is, every year when we go to ask for a budget, it's brought up that we are spending too much money because we're supporting 2 schools. And we need to do something to change that. That's what this process is about. And every year that we put that off is more money that we are spending on 2 schools that we could be reducing. And sometimes we have to spend a little so that we can get savings in the end.
Is it about 500 in savings per year, 500,000 per year?
Yeah, it's still
in
not going to
savings?
be enough to make up the cost of the bond, for sure.
No, it isn't, but it will.
Right, but it
will
gets
make-
you into school, or it gets you a different situation. I mean, it's not gonna be, oh, we're just gonna do it for the savings, because that's not true either.
It'll help our operating budget, at least the first couple of years.
First year, first
until-
two, because a flat budget every year increases at least 600,000. So it's going to be actually eaten up within the first year, so we already even don't consider it as a possible savings.
But the thing, the comment I want to make though about CIP though, is my experience of being on that board is that it's getting tighter and tighter. Like mostly because we have a lot of vehicles that we lease and that renews, and that we, a lot of the 500,000 basic pool of money that we have every year is going to leasing. And then there are some other things, but it's a smaller and smaller piece of the pie that goes to anything that is beyond the status quo. And even with the roof project, I mean, we're talking about doing that sort of in a separate way of handling repairing both of the roofs, because those are have-to situations. We got buckets catching water in both schools. So, I don't see CIP as this panacea of solutions for taking care of the schools, especially given the shape they're in now.
And we can't put money aside either for this, really. Special fund.
Why
Not seeing
can't
any extra money.
We can't as a board. The town could probably do it, we can't do it.
Well,
But even at that, they've been tapping into that rainy day fund that they have, to keep the mill rate down. They did it this year. So if they don't have the $1 million in their rate, probably half of that.
What, the general fund?
Yeah.
It is at 12%.
Yes.
So it is still.
It's pretty high.
Pretty high. 8 to 12% is where they like it to be, and it's still, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, 12% is the general fund, or the rainy day fund?
Yeah, 12% of our budget.
12%. And we expect, we like it to be between 8 and 12%, so we're at the high end of that.
Just for unexpected things.
Phil, could you share, again, for some clarification, the schedule of how this whole process might play out, because I can't find that paper.
This is raw, but really you're looking at 2 time frames. So this is the time frame for reimbursement, and basically what that means is you have to apply within the first 10 days of June. And basically, let me start. From right now, you make a recommendation, next meeting, you make a recommendation, whatever it is, you make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. Board of Selectmen vote, they say yes or no. If they say yes to form a building committee, they form a building committee, and they basically have from that date to pull all of their information together, have architects, get all your data together, talk about what classrooms are going to look like, what is the building going to look like, pass a referendum in May, and apply in June. That is as fast, as quick a timeline as you could possibly do. Because basically what happens from June of 2020 is it goes to the state level, and they have a response to you by February of 2021. And the earliest you could put a shovel in the ground would be July of 2021. That's the fastest. And this is I have it on timer, so I would make this bigger for you. But really, that's the sense of, in a nutshell, it's really simplifying, because the timeline is really, really super tight. Mansfield meets basically on a weekly basis to get all their information, their building committee, to get all their information going with their applications. And it's a lot of work. Holland just hired a clerk of the works is the word I was looking for, the term. They just hired a clerk of the works because they were trying to do it themselves, and it was just an astronomical amount of work. So between the superintendent and the people that work in the town office building there, they hired the clerk of the works to kind of oversee the entire project. So you can make you make decisions on how you want to spend your money. Some of it's reimbursable, some of it's not. But that's the general timeline that you would get through just to get a shovel in the ground. Project timelines, some are, per the architect, were 18 months, and I've been told that might be a little fast. Could be closer to 2 years, would be maybe more realistic. And that is only when you don't have people in the way, meaning student, staff. You're not, you know, if you're renovating a building, it takes a lot longer because you have to keep this wing separate than where students are, or you have portables. If you've not been up to Tollins to see what Birch Grove looks like right now, I encourage you to take a drive to Birch Grove before school starts and look at their trailer city. The state is spending $9 million and they're covering the entire cost because Birch Grove has a crumbling foundation, and they're covering the entire cost of those portables. I will say you don't get anything back from that. So they're in a tough spot, and I fully understand that, but their timeline, I mean, is just cranking along. It's no different here. If you miss your June timeline, your next application date is first 10 days of next June, which could happen.
Yeah, you made a good point, Phil, about the swing space and the, you know, that's another thing to consider. Children having to be in the building while it's being renovated versus if we did build a new school, the children would be in school uninterrupted, and you know, the new school could be being built and they would just move in when it's ready, and we wouldn't need to portables and swing space. I think that's another factor. Anybody else?
Just wanted to remind us that the reason we're talking about cutting out some options this month is because in order to make any kind of decision in September, we need to get some updated cost figures. And it makes sense to make that process simpler and less expensive and updating the cost figures. So we're not just doing it because we don't like the number 7.
Anybody else have any more comments?
How do you separate the lower grades from the upper grades?
So the schools that we...
Any schools around that have done that?
Yeah, and that's what we went to look at. When we went, Ken and I went to tour buildings that were pre-K or K-3 buildings. That was one thing we looked at to see, and it was some of them were renovated to new and done in an older building, but they're all separate. They might share a gym space, meaning an 8th grade class has gym when other kids are not there, but their bell schedule might be different. They might rotate at different times. So really, if you look at, you can go onto Mansfield site and see their plan. It kind of looks like a feather of an arrow, and there's like branches off, and this is how you do it. And so there's like, this is a grade, this is a grade, this is a grade, and I'm just showing all of you. So each line out is a grade, and everything is in the center is the hub, the cafeteria, the gym, the office, the nurse's office, things like that. So that's what you get. You really pay an architect for, an engineer. They ask you what types of things you're wanting, and they design around what you're looking for. Some districts do it where it's just all the kids are on the bus together, and some districts do 2 schedules. Bolton does 2 schedules, and the principal said it's an absolute nightmare. You know, it's you just have to figure out how to do that. But it's very common. It does happen more often than we think.
And the grades, sit in different parts.
Right, it's not like you have a kindergartner sitting in the back with an 8th grader. You section the bus off.
Even now, that's the way it is in all schools.
Correct.
Okay, anybody else have any other comments?
I would just like to say, I don't think we should take away option 4B, because I think we should get more information. And I agree with what Steph said about some of the others, but I think 4B,
Oh, I
Hall
wouldn't
is-
say 4B.
Okay.
4A, which
Center
is the one
renovated or?
No, 4A then I mean, because I don't
Okay.
think we should discount Hall right now. I think we should still, there's other options for Hall besides keeping it as one entire building. We could possibly take part of the addition off and have it be renovated a different way than taking, and make it be more the size that we need and not have to pay the extra money.
So I'm
For the
sorry,
larger
you're
building.
saying you would keep option 4B?
I would say keep option 4AB and option 5.
Both options, both
Both-
for
both
A and
for
B.
A.
Both 4 and B.
And A and B, okay.
So you would eliminate 1, 2, 3, and 6. So we're here.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have any motions to begin the elimination process?
Before, yeah,
Or her,
option one,
yeah,
this, does this include money from the state? Is that what this
It's
is?
a good question. Some of the projects are,
I read that a little differently in that maintaining 2 schools, and they just make capital improvements. That's what we do now, kind of. I think that should be an option.
That's what I was saying, but they're saying that that's the default, so I don't know.
That's-
I would agree with you, that's how I see it.
Let me
I'd
read-
like to see it.
let me explain option 1 again, so everybody's on the same page. Option 1 is basically taking all of these identified capital improvement projects here that
2 years ago.
from 2 years ago. He put a cost estimate next to it, and he said, in one big swoop, we're coming in 1 year,
Do it all at once.
and it's all done at once. Our current plan right now is we might do the top 3 next year, and the next 3 we'll do the following year, and we just lay things out. The idea of this was, it's not renovate to new, you're just doing sections, certain things at a time. You're not changing learning spaces, you're not changing hallways. Basically what you're doing is you're replacing a boiler, you're replacing a roof, you're replacing a heating system, you're maybe adding in an AC. And he's got all of those things, and basically what happens is some of the projects qualify for state funding, reimbursement, some do not. And the silly example I think I gave you was about the windows at Center School. The window itself is not reimbursable, but the labor to put the window in is reimbursable. So they've got all these quirky rules about what is reimbursable and what is not reimbursable, and it's basically written into law, and that's why, how you apply for whatever you apply for. The oil tank portion is, you have to look to see what's reimbursable and what's not.
So if
So
we-
an elevator, I don't believe is reimbursable. An elevator's not on our CIP list right now in Boston, I can tell you that right now. It's not on our map, it's not on that.
and we need that
And
to
our
comply
elevator
with
is-
ADA.
Is creeping up.
So if we were to keep option 1 in here and we went to ask for updated numbers, could we compare this facility study to our capital improvement? What we put in this year to kind of, because we just replaced the oil, we're replacing the oil tank. So, but was the oil tank part of this, or was that, is there things that maybe could be taken off or switched around so we'd have a more
And
accurate?
things that might be added from
An
last year. Yeah.
more accurate,
There are things that are-
up-to-date information about what that,
You
Option
could,
one
the
would
thing I'm
look
gonna
like-
remind you though, is 4A, and I know people had commented it's our tax dollars either way. 4A, you're getting $32 million worth of product.
yeah, instead of,
For 14.
And I thought we just said that option 1, meaning doing it all of that at once, doesn't make sense.
I know, I'm just saying because of some of the comments that were in the,
But I think the comment referred to keeping the CIP, meaning not do anything, but just follow what we've been doing.
you don't think it reflected?
No, I don't think that anybody, no.
No, I don't think so.
We really should
We
cross
should,
out
yes.
capital improvements, improvements, I guess is,
I think we should have a separate option here, option number 7, which we call doing nothing, but in reality, it's just doing CIP,
Doing what we've been doing.
what we have been doing.
It's already there.
But see,
And
my
that-
No
feeling-
change.
it's the default.
My feeling about that though is, as a Board of Education, that's us saying, the board does not recommend a building option at this time. That's what it is.
Right.
That's saying no.
I know.
Let the town operate as we have, fix things as the roofs leak, we fix the roofs, you know, and do it that way. That's not, to me, that's not a Board of Ed option for the schools. That's status quo, so I don't think it needs to be outlined.
Is there a way that we can add some space for some good option which may come up? Like some opening? Is there a way we can edit somewhere, somehow?
Could that happen at the selectmen level if there's a great idea?
That's a building committee.
That's a building committee thing.
Are you talking about specific places in the building?
No, if for example somebody comes, if for example people in town do like the option with waiting for 8 years, waiting for the bond money with the library to be done. So, or any other options.
It's this board's choice to do whatever they want, but at some point you either have to make a decision or do not. Is how it
What
works.
you're saying,
This
waiting
board
to
can
a year
decide
would
whatever.
be just do
Right.
nothing, like,
Right.
would be just wait, just
You
do
would
what
do it
we've been
anytime.
doing.
So so back on the Board of Education for years has been working on how to manage declining enrollment and increase costs. And these options came out of the work that had come from the Board of Education, and they took what we had already been looking at for several years, and it was not easy to get money for a study, and that's where these items came from. We weren't saying, only give us this, here's what we looked at, now if you can study facilities and what best comes from that. That's where the options came from. They weren't pulled out of thin air, or one person requested them. It came from the work we started, or maybe 8 years ago. We used our new technology and Post-it notes of everybody's ideas on, and worked for several years on that. Then it took a lot to get funding for a study. And that's where these numbers came from. You could continuously add options, but you're never, in my opinion, you're not solving the problem. We're not solving the issue, which was
And your data
how
is
to,
still-
how to deal with our increased costs and declining enrollment.
And if people don't like any of the option, they will just vote it down. Like
Correct.
when it's a referendum, and then it will continue the way it's been doing. That's why, and I understand. because I was feeling the
Every
same as
resident
you.
will have an
Now I
opportunity to
understand
vote one
that.
way or the other.
And you will also have a lot, once you get to, and Herb was asking about, we haven't even talked about what the classrooms look like or anything like that. That's a building committee's job. And there would be a lot of information coming out of that building committee just about that project now. It's not about 7 projects in the options. It's about 1. Here's what we're moving forward, and this is what the vote is gonna be on. And it's either a yes or a no at that point.
And that's the point when there's more option for people to hear what's going on in a less confusing setting, because it's now focused on one thing instead of 7. But I think our point tonight is to get rid of a few options.
Yeah.
Not to pick the option we're gonna do to send to the selectmen yet, just to get rid of a few options so that we can get more information and get it more updated money, estimates.
Okay, do we have any motions to begin that? Is it Donna? Donna, you can speak at, when we get to the second person
Okay.
to speak. Erica speaks as the select person, so
Okay.
she's allowed to participate, but otherwise,
Okay.
okay, thank you, appreciate that.
I move that we remove options 1, 2, 3, and 6.
Do we have a second to that?
Yeah, I said.
Okay, Kiara, discussion. We're going to, a motion to eliminate options 1, 2, 3, and 6. Phil,
I'd
can
like
you
to
go
make,
to
I'd like to
option
make
six?
amend the motion
Okay, Herb, yep.
that we take up 1, 2, 3, and 6 separately.
Do each option separately?
No.
1, 2, 3, was that 1, 2, 3, 6?
1, 2, 3, 6.
Take each one separately.
Okay. So, do we want to start with option 1 maybe? A motion?
I'm still thinking if I want to accept the friendly motion.
Oh, okay, yep.
Is there a second to that motion?
To the friendly motion.
Yeah, to my
Friendly
motion,
amendment?
to my motion, there's a second.
I seconded
Kiara
her
seconded.
motion.
Yeah, but I made an amendment. to
And
the
I
motion.
can second yours. Yeah, sure, I'll second yours.
Do you
So we have
second,
two
do you
motions?
agree? Do you agree?
Because I work, I don't-
Friendly amendment?
He amended it, you just seconded the amendment.
Yeah,
So
but
it's
first,
now amended.
does Stephanie do
Yeah,
it?
sorry, I was
Yeah.
supposed to have discussion before we
I would question the way
So
that was
we're
done, but
discussing
Yeah,
the-
no,
We're discussing the amendment now too.
Right.
Right. So we discussed
We're not
that
discussing the
before,
main motion, we're discussing.
the amendment. Okay, any
Take up
discussion
1, 2,
about the
3
amendment
separately.
to vote on each option separately?
Now it's
Herb, is that your intent? Herb,
Yes.
to vote on each option separately? Okay, any discussion about that? Okay, all those in
Stephanie,
favor?
I thought you wanted to discuss it.
well, I don't think, I mean, and my motion was to do it all
Oh.
together because I feel like we've discussed all the options in July, today, and I think, I think we're,
Yeah,
so I would
okay.
not favor the amendment to the motion.
I made a motion that it hasn't been agreed to.
Do we have a second to Herb's?
I did.
You did, okay, you seconded
So now we
it.
vote
Okay,
on
all
the
those in
amendment
favor
first.
Of the
with
amendment.
Herb's
of the
amendment? Okay, have Herb. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, okay.
You have to
Opposed.
say opposed.
Okay, all those opposed? Okay, all right, so we go back to Stephanie's amendment?
Motion.
It's
Motion, sorry. Okay, any discussion about back to Stephanie's amendment?
A motion. Just a
Motion, okay. All right, all those in favor?
well, if there's no discussion,
There's no discussion.
Oh, that's what, well, discussion about Stephanie's motion.
okay. Just that, I mean, I'll just expand on it, that I think that, option 1 is not a strong one because option 4A offers more value for the same price. Option 2 is hugely expensive. I don't get the sense from the survey or from the people present that the most expensive option would succeed. And then option 3 presumes hall could be demolished, and we've got information that that's not doable. Or that's not in our agreement, and not something that the foundation would not approve. And 6 is there were 80% of the respondents on the survey saying they definitely did not want to bus grades 6 through 8 out of district, and particularly to a town where we do not have board representation. So that's my rationale.
Any other comments? Okay, all those in favor of eliminating option 1, 2, 3, and 6? Say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we have 4 opposed.
Aye.
Okay, no abstentions. Okay, the elimination passes. Any other motions for any of the other options? Okay, it looks like then we've eliminated the 4 and we maintain the 3. Option 4A, 4B, and option 5. Okay, any other discussion about that? Okay.
Will you be able to get to eliminate those, or which would be status quo, or to 1 in your next meeting? What information do you need to be able to make that decision?
Is it time to get an updated estimate, or
How costly?
is it costly for 3 options?
I still don't understand why 4B is an option. See, I would have taken that out also. But,
Do you want to make a motion to do that?
Everything
Karen?
all is new.
Well, you mean because you don't, why do you feel like it's not an option?
because I'm very nervous about renovating hall. It didn't come up in the survey as being, I mean, option 6, you're saying there were a lot of people against it, there were also some that were for it. I think some of it were, I mean, I don't know.
It wasn't really, we didn't really have a question that asked about that, and I heard Elena say tonight that she had people saying what's wrong with our school, and she supported having halls still be used as a school building. And I also have heard other people say we could use that building, and that building might give us more options as far as space for fields and stuff. And I know there's a lot of things and it's old, but it can also, I don't know, I just feel like maybe we could get more information. And maybe we don't have to keep the square footage of the building as it is. If we're renovating as new, we might be able to take parts of it and.
But to answer Fia's question, what other information can we get that's gonna make us change our mind?
Option 4A and 4B, the engineers that we've talked to, the project managers that we've talked to, that have given us feedback about this, that do this for a living, they've said, renovate to new, you need to make sure you do a risk analysis. You need to pay to know that what you're getting into, it makes sense. And knowing that there's asbestos in both buildings, and I went back to this because I wanted to make sure I was correct, there's no, in this hall school renovation project, there's no swing space cost. It's a 60,000 square foot building. And remember, if you build new, you could build 28,000 based upon the number of students. But if you do a major floor plan renovation, you have to know what you're going to do with students. And that would be one of my questions to the architect when he updates this price, to say, are you sure that we don't need swing space for this option, number one? And number two, there are companies that do this that's their business, a portion of their business. I do have a company that I know that does it, and it would probably be costly, but to do a risk analysis, if you're going to consider option 4A or 4B, I would say you want more information than I'm providing you as far as what I know as far as what's in the buildings for asbestos, where is it, what's it going to take, what could we potentially open up.
Is there swing space allotted in either of those options?
The other school.
I think in 4A there's swing space. Yeah, estimated swing space cost.
I think we have to consider it because there is a percentage of the people who made comments who said they would like that, and then I didn't look back at the other part, but I think there would be some public outcry if we were to totally say we're just going for a new building and not explore the option a little bit further of how we could use the buildings that we have right now, in my opinion.
What would the expense be to price out these? It would obviously would be a whole lot more to price out 3 options. And, I think that's another consideration.
Where you want to consolidate K-8, you're going to demolish center, and you're going to build a new school on that site. Is there enough room on that site? I don't think the state would allow it.
The architect said, yeah. They said we would be grandfathered in because there's already a school on that site. You wouldn't have to, and I'm taking his word for that. You would find out when you put your application in, because this is the
Because they
business.
have a limitation on acreage.
They do, but he also said, there's a lot of urban school districts, they don't meet the acreage requirement, and so
If
you.
you build a new school, you want to make sure you've got fields.
Oh, if you went new off-site, Herb, if you went new not on the center school or hall school sites, you're gonna have to meet the acreage requirements.
And we'd have lots of fields. You'd have
That would
hopefully,
be,
but I think.
So bust into that new recreational park across from 84.
Well, option 4,
We'd have to buy land then for fields. Right, for the school. And we'd have a bus.
It would be part of, for which option, Herb?
4A. No, 4A.
No, he's talking
Herb.
about 5.
Talking about 5,
You are
yeah.
correct.
Talking about new.
Option, and this is where the confusion was about eminent domain. The center school is set, I believe, on 8 acres. You do not have enough land for a soccer field, a baseball field, and a softball field. You need about approximately 15 acres for field space alone for those, if you want all of your fields for the sports we currently have on site. I don't think that you could do that at the current center school site. If you would have to be, and this is where you make decisions, you'd have to be okay with busing your baseball team just like you do now from center school to the town office building. You'd have to be okay with busing your softball team to, I'm not sure where.
That would be an additional cost.
It's in your operating budget.
This year.
It's in your operating budget, correct.
You ought to buy the land in the fields.
Well, there's.
That's not included in this.
There's already a baseball field here that the school.
They can walk
The
to.
school uses, they cannot walk here.
Oh, they
There are
can't?
no
No.
sidewalks, they cannot walk here.
No.
There's 7.
Can we make a sidewalk? I mean, it's cheaper to make a sidewalk than build a new.
Anyway, I think you'll be able to
The
work that out,
bus.
so.
Yes.
Yeah, the one I don't know is the softball field. Because I'm not sure the softball field, I don't think we have a softball field in town that is a middle school softball field. I think the only one we have is at Hall School. I mean, if you leave that building, you don't have use of that field unless you have an agreement. And I think, no, you do have a soccer field at River Road.
Well, the option 4A is very, very scary for me personally, because it's not gonna work unless we agree to buy the properties around.
And they agree
We
to
need
sell.
additional, well, if people live there 25 years, they don't need money, that's what
No,
they
but
need.
you just said that,
If you want my house and I like where I live, it's gonna become more valuable to me.
Well, it's
Not about-
actually on words, because in reality, nobody is gonna pay too much more than the real value of the property. So it means in reality, we're gonna be facing a question when people will have to sell their properties to us, maybe a little bit higher than the market value.
No,
There's no have to in there, Elena.
Elena,
There's nothing in
There's
this
no imminent
that says someone has to sell us their land,
Right.
or that we have to ask them for their land. That's not,
So
the
it's the
assumption was that
option.
there would be land acquisition. What this study didn't take into account is what land you acquired and for what purpose.
So
That's
this
not what this
option,
study says.
so this option will work even if nobody will sell us anything,
correct.
Right.
okay?
As
So
long as
then
we
we'll
bus
have
the
to
kids.
correct it.
as long as we bus the kids to,
Correct.
Yeah.
for
Yes.
facility,
Because
for
it says
sports.
Acquisition.
acquisition.
You may need land acquisition for a field somewhere else
You
in
also
town.
might need acquisition of parking. Because you're putting the entire pre-K through 8th grade staff in that building, so the current parking situation.
And do we know how many properties are around Central School?
Mhm.
Which would be how many? It's not a secret, I can
You
look at
can
the
look- you
map.
can look it
Yeah,
up.
yeah, I mean, I think there's like 8 or 10 total that touch center school property.
And couple are
go down
historical,
the
which
hill.
we cannot touch. Do you count historical?
I'm not sure if I know one of the historical properties touches the center school land, I know one does not. And I know that, I'm not sure if there's a third historical property or not.
So it means from those 8, 2 or 3.
But you're still talking about well over $750,000 anyways. To buy those 3 properties,
If they're willing to sell.
if they were willing to sell, you're already well over $750,000.
The other
Plus
point about
demolition.
renovating Hall is being on Route 32. That's never been ideal. Is that something we want to perpetuate? You know, I think we have an opportunity now to get a safer space for a school. So to me, that's an issue. That's
Are
something.
you're talking about 4A?
Yes.
No, B,
For
okay.
Or be renovating Hall. Yep.
And then option 5 involves purchase of the new piece of land, which we don't have.
Option 5 as written is that you're building a brand new pre-K through 8th grade building on center school site, and then you're demolishing center school, the current building, because you need parking and field. You could also make this almost an option 5A that is about the same exact cost, that is building on a different location, not at center or Hall, a different location in town. And the architect has said, you're about the same amount because you're not going to demolish center school, and you're going to use that money for
But I understand it, but I tell the truth, I looked at option 5 right away as Kiara corrected, buying a new piece of property and building a new school. But if we're even considering demolishing a central school while our town building is in really pitiful conditions, it would be a waste for our small town. I don't think that's a working option. I think we should correct before we even push it anywhere. And represent that option 5 just as a buying a new piece of property and building a new school.
I would
But
have
not
to
as it
agree
is.
with that.
And if this is why you need to
I
get to
agree
that
also.
point.
And I would, excuse me, Phil, I would love to be able to give center school to the town, so we could then look at it from a whole town perspective. And, you know, everybody could move up a step, you know, the town hall could move over to center.
We have AC
Yeah. So
We don't have a lot
I
here, but
agree
we
with
do
you
have
too, Elena.
So then
Yeah.
how about if we move further before the next meeting, let's correct the option 5.
Let's what?
You can say option 5.
Would you like to
you-
make a motion to do
Let's
that?
go ahead.
Well,
See,
Phil.
I think what you're saying is you're going to say that we're gonna change option 5 from building on the center school site because you don't see that as feasible, you don't want to demolish center school, that you would, your option 5 would be an off-site location and you want accurate pricing for a new school off-site.
Off-site,
Is that-
that I would put on
That's not
option 5.
you're saying that's not reasonable as far as timing?
What do you mean timing?
Well, we
No,
don't
because
have
you're
a-
seeming
so
a
much
little
different
skeptical of this option beware.
I think-
Okay, never mind.
I heard
I'm
Phil say
reading into your
it's
tone.
already
No.
about the same cost. You'd shift some of the
Okay.
costs you had using
And you
one
think that's
site
something we
and
can
use
do
it
by
into
next time?
purchasing another.
By
By the next meeting to figure out what an option, what
He
option
just said
five
this is
would be.
about the same price, I mean, he's gonna,
Yeah, I would like to make a motion. I would like, before we move forward, I would like to make a motion to change option 5, to correct option 5 from demolishing central school and building a new school instead of central school, into building a brand new school on the brand new lot.
I'll second that motion.
Discussion.
Discussion?
Is there any reason to preserve the original 5 and make that 5A? I'm just posing the question, I don't really have an opinion on that.
Well, I
At that
think
point,
we-
I wouldn't preserve.
yeah,
the
we want to
original.
get rid of the options and
Mhm.
from
No
this.
adding.
I would get rid of all of them, tell you the truth, but I mean,
I just didn't want to, I just wanted to make sure that we're not losing any,
Any valuable
yeah,
options?
valuable
Okay.
option there.
Anybody else having comments about that? Okay, all those in favor of modifying option 5 to build the new school on newly purchased land as opposed to eliminating center school? All those in favor? Herb, are you ready to vote, or do you have any questions about that? Good, okay, all right, all those in favor?
I,
Aye. Okay, so we're 4 against, 4 2. And all those opposed? Opposed? Okay, any abstentions?
I just really just came out of them, I don't know, I just can't.
So you want to abstain, if
Yes,
you're really
please.
not sure. So we have 4, 1, okay. All right, and do we want to keep options 4A and 4B on the table? Anybody have any feelings about that?
I feel like we should keep both of those. One of the things that we haven't really discussed, one of the, sorry.
Stephanie?
One of the things that we haven't discussed is that there is a real interest in the Hall School area being a prime center of town, the old village there, and that the removal of the school, the activity of the school there would have a negative impact on that kind of public option for the town as a whole. So I think there's definitely a body of people in town who favor keeping Hall in action. So I wouldn't remove that.
Anybody else have any comments? How about 4B?
That was 4B.
Oh, that was 4A then, I'm sorry.
I have a question
Oh, that was
to Phil,
4A.
and maybe
I was
Erica.
speaking about four.
If, question to you, if at any point within last few years, we had a conversation or discussion with the Halls Foundation about giving us that property, like, to keep? Or maybe this is something what we can look into to
What
try
does it do
to
for us?
Right.
get engaged in it? Well, if you
Maybe
say,
they would give it to us and then we can do whatever we
and we
want
would
when
do
it's out of
whatever we
school.
want, yes. Did we have a
In
conversation like this?
In my experiences, it was not, the discussion was always, there's an agreement that it can be used as a school. That is the agreement on paper with the town, and that's the agreement that, at the time the discussions were upheld. I didn't at any time ask the Hall Foundation if they'd be willing to give it to us. And I don't know that I would have the discussions, they could give it to us so that we could potentially tear it down. I think that goes against what they had hoped the building would be and what the original agreement was entered.
And I did not ask either because the words were, we still see value in the building as it is.
So how about if,
As it is.
how about if we'll discuss with them, if we will try to engage in the official conversation with them from the point, if we do go to renovate, as Tracy says, to renovate Hall, then in that particular case, we're gonna keep the building.
You are going to
That's
keep the
my-
I
building
don't see
theoretically
that,
whole.
I don't see there's any benefit for them to just give us the building after all these years to do. The agreement is always, you can't, the town, the building can be used by the town as long as it's used as a school.
Well,
And so-
it would be, I understand Tracy's
But if we're gonna
concern.
renovate it,
I understand Tracy's concern, if we put all this money into whole school, renovate it, make it like new, and then at some point, it doesn't really, it doesn't even belong to the town. So it would be good to do it if we have some kind of agreement with the whole.
there is a written agreement that as long as it's a school, the town has use of it. That is a legal binding agreement.
Yes, but all agreements could be rediscussed, could be, we could negotiate, we could just talk to them about it.
I feel like that's outside the jurisdiction of this board, but I would just add one little caveat there. If we start renovating Hall and it turns into an environmental disaster, we don't want to own it, is my view.
And we already have a pretty good idea.
But you have to finish what you started at some point.
Yeah,
So
but I mean,
liable for it.
I think that I'm not sure we want to, that the town would want to take ownership of that whole thing.
Right, I just
It's
don't-
a nice deal the way it is.
It's an agreement that has been in place for almost 100 years. There has, as far as I'm aware, has never been talk of the town asking for it to be ours solely, or the Hall Foundation threatening to take the building from the town as used as a school.
Yeah.
I don't see there being any benefit, additional benefit to either party to change that.
Well, that's what I'm thinking, it's like momentary, like moments thinking. If we do try to talk to them about it, especially as you mentioned, it's 100 years old agreement, it's kind of time for us to discuss and to find out where they're standing, 100 years old agreement, even if maybe they will allow us to demolish it. And if we demolish, that's your piece of land.
But there's always, the discussion has been had about that, and they see value in the
But
building.
how about if we'll make it official discussion? How about we will involve them in everything what we go through and see if maybe we can
You're
find
building a
their
brand new
interest
school.
in it somehow?
You're building a brand new school, you demolish it.
I know, I understand, but we have a piece of land. How big is this piece of land? So the
It
central
does
is.
not have all the field space that you currently are.
I know, but how much? If the central school is 8 acres.
There, it's weird because it's broken into about, there's four parcels. And the parcel that is the driveway down to the school is owned by the town of Willington. The lower soccer field is owned by the town of Willington. And the parking, it's actually 5 parcels. And the parking lot across the street and the actual building and field space back to the river is owned by the Hall Foundation. It's about 8 acres.
So they own 8 acres.
I believe that's the number.
The rest belongs to the town already.
The driveway
Yes,
down
yes, yes.
and the. is
In
it
the lower
Are you on
field.
GIS?
Yeah.
Is that included across the street?
But that's all in the property.
So you can't build on it. It looks like they own just the 8.6.
It's not clear on that. That
8.6.
Yeah,
GIS
that
is
is
not,
not clear.
we
There's
we
some
went
old
back
records
into
in the
town
town
records
that-
and found where the parcel.
So are you saying the whole site is 8 or just the foundation parcels are
The
8?
section that I believe the Hall School Foundation owns is approximately 8 acres.
And that includes the piece across the street that's used for parking.
And didn't you say 15 acres would be the ideal number for?
That's the-
With the fields and with,
The number for 450 students, which is about our number for the, based upon enrollment projections, you would need 15 acres plus 1 acre for every 100 students. You would need approximately 19 acres.
Not that it's an option now, if Hall School were to be torn down and you put up a new building, it would be a smaller building than Hall School currently is.
It'd be half the size.
You cannot build, we can keep that size, but we cannot build that size based on our numbers. Unless we foot the bill for the extra square footage.
No, and you'd still be penalized.
Ah, okay, because we need 15
Even
acres.
if you say you want something extra, we're gonna foot the bill for a theater,
So we
it's in
need
your square
15
footage, they're
acres.
gonna penalize.
Right.
So we need 15 acres. And that place doesn't have 15 acres. That's why you say that it.
That's why there's land
That's why there's
acquisition
land
built into the
acquisition.
option. It's not on the correct option, but that's why there's land acquisition built into,
The study took
Also
into
for
account
the-
how many acres we would need
Mhm,
for the school.
mhm.
And that if we use those particular pieces of property, they would need land acquisitions to meet that minimum.
Another question to you, just have it. In the case, okay, we build a brand new school, whatever options we choose, for 450 kids. We invest all this money into it, and then suddenly, whatever happens, economic in the country improves, in the state improves, and we have 700 kids, let's say 550 kids. What are we doing? Are we building a new school?
You can put additions on, you can go to portable buildings.
you figured out what.
That
That's why
particular
they do
school
8-year
has had
projections.
additions put on it. It was built one size, our numbers got bigger, they put additions on it because you need it. There were students at Hall School at one time in the early 80s in portable buildings.
And that's why they do an 8-year projection, not what do you have today.
And they won't let you build bigger because you hope you're gonna get more kids.
and we're finding that our numbers are somewhat consistent.
They are
you
last
know.
5 years.
Within last 5 years, 5 years is not really a very reliable period. It's something, I'm not saying it's nothing, but it's, I would like to see 10 years, the
Sure.
same number, that's reliable. No,
We're going on 6 with the same number.
that's good, so let's
You know.
wait. I'm kidding.
Number 5, which we approved permanently modified, new school with another location. We have to buy the land, right? So that would change the bottom line for this. Because
He'll update all that
and
pricing.
the demolition of the center school, we really wouldn't have to do that. We could turn it over to the town.
If that's what the board is asking me to
You
get
can
a
take those
price on.
dollars and turn them into additional land acquisition if need be.
Yeah.
The way that are here, you can.
But again,
split them.
That's if the board is agreeing to that. If the board is saying, we want to get a price for a new off-site, you're basically saying you're not going to demo.
But that's exactly what we just voted for.
Right.
So,
No, you voted
To make it an option.
to make an
Make it
option
an option.
to have an off-site and new building. You have to determine what you do with center schools now.
no, which,
Right, you could demolish center school or you could
Yes,
say the
that's
town.
what-
As long as you're
That's a
saying,
different
as long as
part.
you're agreeing,
And they're
that's the
saying
quote.
you
That's a
want
pleasant
No
part.
number of center
So
schools,
let's
I
get
agree.
that quote,
Yes.
without the demolition.
Do,
yes.
without paying,
Because it's an asset
correct,
for the town, is what.
that's why you want to do it,
It's
yes.
really valuable.
Without paying, I would assume quite a bit of money for a risk analysis for 4A and 4B. Do you want a statement from the engineers saying what they feel about this? Either the renovation, because I think you've heard what they've said.
Can I make a motion, a kind of a
What-
try?
he has a question.
Okay.
No, I think you're trying to figure out, what do we do with 4A and 4B, and how big is this can of worms with an environmental issue coming up? And
That's why
this
I'd
is
like-
exactly what the engineers have said, is that you are really rolling the dice. If you do, a renovation looks beautiful, but for someone that lives it, that's what they've said. They had looked at all 7 options and said, do you want to know which option is the scariest for us? It's not tear down an old building and build a new one. It's not do a CIP massive overhaul. It's doing a renovation of a 100-year-old building, because you believe this is what you're gonna find, but if you find something else, you own it, you have to fix it. You can't ignore it. And that's why they were really looking at 4A and 4B and going, highest risk, or those are the two options, highest risk.
So what could we ask of the engineers, you're saying, without spending an inordinate amount of money?
I mean, this is their job, they're residents. You would have to listen to what they'd have to say, and you know, if you
And that's
have
not
to
gonna
determine
cost
if it's.
us too much money?
I think they would do it for free, because they're parents. But you'd have to determine if it's biased or not. You'd have to determine if what they have to say is based upon what they do in their profession.
Can we invite them for the next meeting? Their option to do that?
Absolutely. If they're willing to come and speak, you know, I mean, this,
Or you can stay.
that's what I'm asking. If you don't want to pay for a risk analysis, that is the other option. But you don't want me saying that. You don't want the board saying that. We believe this is what it's gonna cost as far as, you know, is this accurate? You want a professional that's gonna say, I do this for a living. You could do a full risk analysis, or you could listen to what someone who does this for a living say, how risky is this? And if they say it's super risky, are you going to eliminate it? That's what you have to determine.
Well, we would like to know the amount of
They
fees.
give you an amount.
Not just,
They're not gonna give you
Nobody's
an
gonna do that
amount.
for free.
They're going to look at that and say, a renovation, a typical renovation of a 60-year-old building or a 100-year-old building, these are some of the issues run into. They can share those things. They're not gonna give you a price for a risk analysis. Totally different thing.
So what I'm hearing, Phil, is you're saying we can do two things at the same time. We can ask for these residents of Willington, who is the job, to give us a risk analysis for free. And we could also.
It's not really risk analysis though.
But it's their recommendation based on their profession.
Correct. Yes.
And then we could also, or we could give the options back to Fryer and say, can you give us an updated information?
Sure.
So we have three options there, is that what I'm just trying to,
What do you mean by a fee
Here,
information?
Have you budgeted?
No, there
for
was
it?
no
budget cost.
Do you, and do you have funds, Tracy, for an updated? Because you don't have anything in terms of budget for that together, in mind before the Board of Finance to get funds.
Okay, I would like to make a motion, just to kind of try everybody's minds. My motion would be to eliminate option A and option B, because I think, for A and for B, because I think we've already heard, Phil, am I wrong, ideas about the risks?
That's what the engineers have said publicly.
Now, they could come back and tell us again, but I think they've already said this to Phil, and it would be a whole lot less expensive for us to just price out option 5 than it would be to have to spend money, which we don't really have, to price out the other two options. Do I have a second on that, or?
Sure, I'll second, and then we can discuss.
Okay, any discussion?
Yeah, I guess I have a question about why they wouldn't say option 2 and 3 were risky.
Because replace option 3, replace, you're building 2 brand new schools.
Right.
And you're demolishing. And option 2, I'm sorry, I don't have my glasses on, my apologies. Renovate is new, they've fallen in the same boat. Renovate is new, anything you're
That's like
renovating.
4A and B, as far as what you're talking about.
Correct, it's
So
the same
option
exact
2,
thing.
yeah.
Option 2 is.
Only more
is for-
expensive than either of those.
Correct.
Yeah.
Plus, we have to pay to demolish the other building, which is another extra expense that doesn't really turn into part of a new building.
It's kind of important.
Yeah, I had a question because Michelle's not here and she was in on the discussion of our first motion, but I don't have a feel for where she sits on 4A and 2B.
That's a good point, and that would be one reason to revisit it in September.
I don't know how everybody else feels about it. I remember her
Can
saying
we
she would
wait
give us
until
information, but I wasn't sure.
I would not remove all but one option tonight.
Okay.
I think we've already, discussed that being a September decision with more information.
So
I'd like to hear what they have to say, actually.
But they already.
If you have to kill your motion first.
Okay, all right, all those in favor? All those opposed? We're
Well,
voting
I was
on
in
the-
favor, but I don't, you have to, you're right, you have to.
Sorry,
wait.
sorry, Herb. Okay, my motion was to eliminate option 4A and option 4B. And Tracy made the point that Michelle's not here, and it would be good to see what her feelings are. Perhaps we could just have our residents come in and let us know what their take is, the residents who are also in this field, so it doesn't cost anything. And then, in the meantime, we could price out option 5.
So the motion, so you just voted to eliminate those two? Because you...
Yeah,
we haven't voted.
I did, we haven't voted, no,
You
no,
just
that
read it.
was my motion.
So-
She's just repeating the motion.
Yeah,
I
so
just
we're
saw
all,
hands going up, I even didn't
no.
know.
Okay, so anyone in favor of that motion?
Was it second?
Just-
I was going to.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, all those opposed? Okay, and abstentions. So we'll consider this again at our September meeting. And Phil, could we,
So what I was gonna say
Invite.
was, that means, I have no guarantees for you, but I can try and get updated pricing on the new option 5, and see what they're gonna charge us, if anything. He's gonna be in a good mood and give us updated pricing on that. And then invite the 2 individuals to the board meeting for option 4A and 4B, or have them just, is a written statement good if they cannot attend as well. And they can say, share their credentials, and this is not been top secret. One of them is Aaron Krieger, who was the project manager for building the new Sandy Hook School. So when we say it's their business, it's their business. The other person is Beth Bean, and she does this for UConn. So I will offer that to them if that's what you'd like.
okay, very good. So we've eliminated option 1, 2, 3, and 6. We've modified option 5 to put a new building on new land. And we still have option 4A and 4B as options, and we'll discuss those in September. Okay, thank you. Next, we have present to speak. Sarah?
One reason why I was interested in tonight's meeting, in our community, people who have been following this for years, they're saying, has the board made any decisions? Why don't they narrow it down? And thank you tonight for giving us less options. So I think we really do need to make a decision. I think a lot of the things that I've heard here tonight have been said repeatedly. Because if you were trying to pay attention, even moderately, you've heard every single thing, except some of the amendments, which was new and appreciated. But I just would encourage, I know you all are trying to do your very best, but to go back, once you've decided on something, or it is unfortunate that Michelle's not here tonight, but that's it. You know, you guys are here, and you just have to move forward with this. You won't miss your timelines, and all that stuff about the CIP. It's so redundant. I hope everybody understands how that works and is really up to speed on all the information. I don't think I'm the most informed person, but there's not a lot that was new. And you have a lot of patience, Phil, because you are answering the same stuff repeatedly. And I hope I'm not harsh. I just, the next time I come, I want to see something. I like the fact that you came up with some creative ideas, Elena, about, okay, can we modify this? Can we do that? And thank you for listening to everybody. I think you're all very conscientious, everybody. So thank you for your work.
Thank you, Sarah. Eric?
Go behind.
Yeah, Carol, let's see, poor Carol, she's been.
Donna.
I'm sorry, Donna. Donna's been waiting so patiently.
We have a good friend who lives in Worcester, and they tore down the elementary school to build a new elementary school. The old elementary school was the emergency shelter, and I believe Hall is our town's emergency shelter. You need to keep that in mind because the federal government came in and said, oh, well, it's gotta be emergency shelter, you have to have this many showers, this many, accommodate so many people, and all these things that have absolutely nothing to do with running a school or a school building. But since Hall is our emergency shelter, and it has been used several times during the last 17 years, and you never know when it'll be need to used again, that can add significant cost unless the town does something to maintain Hall School, the building itself, as an emergency shelter. You could get really stuck with a lot of unanticipated things. The other thing is, it sounds like you need approximately 20 acres for a new facility. I'd be curious as to how many viable pieces of property there are for the next step, and where they would be located. The other thing is, I don't think it's a bad idea to keep the center school building, but it sounds like center school building needs a lot of work. So by turning it over to the town, we're just shifting where our problems are and not really getting rid of the problem. If it needs new roof or new heating and new windows, those things aren't going to go away if the town, if the town decides to use it for their office space, unless they decide to sell it, which, would be an option too.
Sarah, and then Erica?
I just want to thank everyone for that really good discussion, and I really liked your ideas, so thank you so much. And I know that you said a lot of people weren't aware of the survey, but I know Phil did come to the PTA meeting about a year and a half ago, and Tracy clarified more of the history on that. But if those people aren't being reached, I do think there needs to be a better way to get to them. So if somehow you can tell the board how we might reach them better.
Oh, I already reached them.
I know, but like it would have been nice if we knew that before, so that they could have, felt like they were included, because you don't want people to feel like they're not part of it. So, now that the board's aware of that, hopefully they can be reached better. But thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Sarah. Erica, and then okay.
So I heard our Hall School compared to Woodstock Academy. Just a little bit of information, Woodstock Academy, besides the sending towns that pay a tuition from their town, they have a day tuition of $15,500 a year and a boarding tuition of $51,500 a year. A lot of that money can account for how they can maintain a school different than we can maintain Hall School. So yes, we have a 100-year-old building and they have a very old building. Their funding is considerably different than ours, and I think we need to take a look at that when we compare apples to oranges. I think there's a lot of historical value in Hall School. I think the people in this town see that, and if it were adequately serving the students of Willington in 2019 the way it was in 1923, I think we'd be having a very different discussion. But at some point we need to see the value that our previous residents saw in increasing a space that had to be built to adequately house the students in Willington then, and I think we need to look forward to how we can adequately educate our 21st century learners.
Thank you, Erica. Judy?
I'm greatly appreciative of the work that everybody's done and the phenomenal amount of work that Phil has done in preparing for these meetings and communicating with people and doing the survey. I congratulate all of you in a journey that you have embarked on that is not an easy path. And to do it in a manner that everybody's voice is heard and respected. I agree with Sarah. I don't know your last name.
It's not me,
I thought you were very articulate in your comments, and I support what you said. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Judy. Anybody else?
Can I add one note? I am in no way in favor of tearing down Hall School for any purpose. I think there's lots of value there I'm just not sure that education is still in it.
Thank you, Eric, and thank you all for coming tonight. It's wonderful to have the residents participating in our process here, and it's greatly appreciated. Are we ready for board comments? Okay, we'll start with her, Caroline.
I want to thank Phil for all his efforts and for looking forward in the survey and the diagrams and everything else. And it's very much appreciated. Also, the 255 surveys, I think it's great because we got a good percentage of the town really. Most surveys, you don't know what you're going to get, but 255 is really decent cross-section probably. That was very much appreciated too. There are a lot of good ideas in there and suggestions. And I'm sure everyone read them.
Okay, we'll hop over to Elena. It's Elena turn.
Yeah, I wanted to say that maybe I did not explain myself well enough. I put Woodstock as an example that old walls are not an obstacle for the great education. That was my example. So I personally think that by investing at this point in economy, not just in our town, but in the state economy, the country economy, I think it's not probably, I cannot agree with the decision to build the school now, just because it really will take money away from children's education and from programs, from getting maybe higher quality teachers, more experienced teachers, whatever it could involve really to improve the education. I just don't believe that the walls really worth taking that away from kids.
Okay, thank you, Elena. Tracy? I'll tell you, I'm going like this, so everybody can be prepared. Okay, Tracy.
I'd like to thank everybody who came out and voiced their opinions. We welcome opinions from all of you, as well as the survey and the comments. It all goes into the whole picture in my head. And I also wish those who have resigned and retired well in their new adventures, whatever they are, and welcome the new hires as well as the ones we hopefully get to hire before school starts.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. Kiara?
Thank you for everybody who has filled out the survey or responded to the survey. And thank you, Phil, for doing a great job analyzing and kind of making it usable for us. I also wish best to the teacher and staff who are leaving. Thanks them for their survey, for their service. And I think that's it. Just I wish you guys best first day, beginning of the school year.
Stephanie?
I appreciate all the public comment because I think it always makes a richer discussion and gives the board a lot of information. And we have a good array of people tonight, and I really value that. I'm sorry so many Hall of Famers are leaving. I'm sort of distressed about that. I mean, there was a groan that went up about a few of the people, and I know that, thinking about Paul Nash and that he's probably, saved a lot of kids from going to juvie, and that alone is, he really is, he's something else, So anyway, I think it's really sad, and that so many people are leaving. Of course, he's been here for 27 years or something. Yeah, but we're lucky to have quality faculty like we do. I look forward to the hiring process and replacing people with new minds and spirits. And thank you.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie. And I'd also like to thank all of the folks who have retired, especially after the many years with Paul and Kate and there was one other, Mike, of course, Mike, and the others too who are moving on. And welcome to the new folks, and good luck, Phil, with the shortage hirings coming up. And so thank you all too once again for coming. And at this point, we'll adjourn at 10:15.